18 years ago, mutations occurred all over the world. Suddenly, towers and gates appeared from nowhere. Monsters began to flood out, threatening human civilization, while a small number of people also awakened superpowers. They were called players. Becoming the hope of humanity and developing into a new faction in the Awakening Association, these young people were extremely panicked, not only because they had awakened themselves, successfully becoming players, and on top of that, Kim Jigu held a special power known as the superhuman among superhumans, but life was not as dreamy as it seemed. Jigu faced more difficulties than he expected. 5 years after awakening, he still struggled in the beginner forest when facing low-level goblins. Jigu was invited to the tower at age 58. He also had a special ability, the so-called privilege reserved for the chosen ones. One would think life afterward would be full of roses, but even 5 years later, he still took hours to defeat a single goblin. Jigu never thought there would be such a unique player like himself. 5 years had passed, but the status window still displayed his level as 1, and next to the special ability section was an annoying question mark, indicating that he had not yet awakened this ability. Just like that, life pushed Jigu to become a guide. Today, as usual, he led a group of new players to hunt goblins. For them, this job was quite easy, feeling like they leveled up before catching many. Wow, leveling up early on is pretty easy, Jigu said bitterly. Then tomorrow we will go to the second floor of the tower. See you all at the entrance tomorrow morning. After giving instructions, Jigu immediately left. Watching his back, the new players began to buzz and discuss. Jigu was very famous, and they had mostly heard rumors about him. The biggest rumor was that he was the one holding the special ability, but most people did not believe it, because if Jigu really had that power, he wouldn't still be here doing such a mundane job. There was another rumor saying he was the lowest-ranked player among all players, and over time, Jigu was given a nickname known by all players. He was the player who could not level up. After finishing his guiding work, Jigu arrived at this place. It was a shabby place on the first floor of the tower that other players rarely passed through, a place he found because he spent more time on the lower floors than anyone else, and it had become his secret base. Here only one goblin appeared once a day, and Jigu always persistently trained on this goblin. This time the goblin turned its neck toward him, making Jigu believe today's hunt would go more smoothly, because as long as he hit the monster's critical point before it noticed him, it would be over. Thinking this, Jigu began to approach the goblin from behind, gently as possible. But when he was only a few steps away, the monster detected him, and it immediately turned to attack. Thus, Jigu and the goblin had to struggle with each other for a long time, and as usual today, he had to go through a tough battle. After a hard hour, Jigu finally defeated it. He returned to the Player Association, sold the crystal bead earned from the goblin, and received $20. He silently calculated that after deducting the money spent on medicine, there was no profit left. Thinking of this, Jigu could only sigh. As he was about to leave, he met a blond man named Teo, who was an acquaintance. After greeting each other, Teo suddenly scratched his head a few times, revealing an awkward expression, then said, "I apologize for what happened." Jigu did not know what had happened. But before he could ask, Teo had already left. Jigu, carrying that question, went into the office. Seeing the person inside, he immediately asked, "Hey Tae-sik, what's wrong with Teo?" The man named Oh Tae-sik was the manager overseeing the guides. His face also showed a very awkward expression. After a long time, Tae-sik finally spoke. "Well, you see, the new players you were in charge of today will be taken over by Teo starting tomorrow." "Why?" Jigu immediately asked. "Everything was fine today." Tae-sik sighed heavily and replied, "It seems they have heard the rumors about you." This answer stunned Jigu for a few seconds, but he didn't seem surprised because this was not the first time such a thing had happened. Jigu truly felt confused, not knowing about those rumors. What does it have to do with your job as a guide when you yourself have always done well in your role as a guide? Tetsuya could only sigh. Because after all those rumors were true, and every new player wants to find a decent guide for themselves, their conversation was interrupted by the latest news being broadcast on TV. The Angela Guild has just announced their intention to climb to the 75th floor of the tower, and the plan to clear the 75th floor will be carried out tomorrow morning through the Soul Gate. Recently, information about the players has become increasingly dense, turning them into a kind of idol even to ordinary residents who never come near the tower. But for Jigo, those news were like salt in his heart, because for Jigo, becoming a real player was already out of reach. Unable to bear the feeling of being bombarded by this news, Jigu grabbed the remote and quickly turned off the TV. "Why did you turn it off? I was still watching Tae-sik," asked up to that point. He replied then. Tae-sik handed him an envelope containing today's guide fee and didn't forget to remind him about Teo, who seemed tough. But actually, he was also sad and thoughtful. "So don't hate him." Jigu nodded, though very sad, but he clearly knew from the start that this was not Teo's fault. He didn't even have the obligation to apologize to Jigu for this new hunter transfer, even though Teshi couldn't change this. Because the change of guide was the new hunter's wish, but to somewhat comfort Jigu, he gave him a special job afterward, arranged by Tae-sik. Jigu had a meeting with Kim Seong-pi, who turned out to be Suk-woo's cousin, and according to Seong-pi, he had always talked a lot about Jigu. It turned out that although Jigu hadn't leveled up for years, Suk-woo had been quietly watching over him this time. Jigu could become the guide for Seong-pi's team thanks to Suk-woo, the former player who guided Jigu when he awakened, speaking on his behalf afterward. He and the team members began to get acquainted. The only girl in the team was named Kim Han-yoon. The chubby mushroom-headed guy was Jun Seong-gu, and the other guy was named Ji-won. They were all quite open, so the atmosphere was comfortable. The introduction session ended. Jigu quickly instructed them on the necessary things for the 5-day, 4-night hunting trip. The first day went quite smoothly. As dusk fell, the group started setting up camp to rest, and with his experience, Jigu quickly finished this task. He also cooked a very delicious pot of curry. The whole group sat down to enjoy the meal when suddenly the guy Jigun asked, "Oh, right, guide, I heard you can't level up, right?" Seong-pi was startled and hurried to stop him, but Jigu didn't seem to mind and replied, "Yeah, that's right. Feel free to ask anything you're curious about." Jigun surely had many questions, but when he saw Seong-pi's bullet-like gaze, he dared not say anything more. They began discussing today's hunting trip. Like most new players, the group of 4 found it not too difficult because the goblins on the first floor were poorly equipped and moved quite clearly. Seong-gu and Jigun got a few scratches but were healed immediately with medicine. Just consider this as practice getting used to killing. If you stay alert and work hard to level up, it will be fine. As long as you don't encounter a guardian, Jigu added. The people in the CNP group were all new hunters, so they were quite vague about the concept of guardians. Jigu explained that they are the protectors of each floor of the tower and rarely appear. They are boss monsters that guilds or large hunter groups have to concentrate on defeating. Only new resources can defeat them. To put it simply, they are like powerful gatekeeper monsters. Although they provide a lot of experience points and good items, at the same time they are dangerous enough that even rank climbers have to avoid them. Speaking of which, the CNP group all put on serious faces. Jigu immediately reassured them, but you don't need to worry too much. Their respawn cycle has been determined. The people in the CNP group all put on serious faces. Jigu immediately reassured them, but said there was no need to worry too much. The regeneration cycle of them has already been determined. And there are guilds specialized in hunting them, not to mention the guards on the lower floors who are also quickly defeated, so actually encountering them is quite difficult. After chatting for a while, they went into the tent to rest, regain strength to prepare for the next hunting trip. Meanwhile, on the 4th floor of the tower in the area where the forest meets the wilderness, a goblin was running for his life, fleeing from a creature far more terrifying than himself. On the second day, the guided group began moving up to the 2nd floor of the tower. Here, besides goblins, there were also large-brained creatures. The new hunters were quite scared by the enormous size of this type of monster. But fortunately, they were quite slow compared to the goblin. On the 3rd day, they advanced another floor where the large-brained creatures and goblins began to appear in groups. However, they were not smart enough to truly cooperate, and the cop group came up with a method to divide them using just a pebble. Han-yoon hid behind a tree. He threw a stone hard at the head of a large-brained creature which was not smart enough to realize that a hunter was hiding behind the tree, so it turned and fought fiercely with the goblin group nearby. Thanks to that, Seo's group could leisurely level up because Jigu had chosen safe paths for them. Now they understood why Supu praised him. On the night of the 3rd day, while cleaning up after dinner, Jigu saw Seo-pi busily writing something and asked what he was doing. "I'm writing a diary. I write every day since I received the invitation to become a player. Who knows? Maybe I'll write an autobiography or something when I become a ranked climber. Haha, maybe." All 4 new hunters were eagerly looking forward to tomorrow because if tomorrow was successful, they could proceed straight to the level 5 test. Only Jigu seemed to have some worries when mentioning level 5. A peaceful night passed as they advanced to the fourth floor. The mission was not much different. Still facing groups of large-brained creatures and goblins acting together, the only difference was their slightly greater strength and agility, and the group decided to use the old method of dealing with them. The four of them fought with all their strength, while Jigu, as the guide, meticulously observed from outside. Thanks to that, he suddenly noticed something unusual. Dust stirred inside Jigu, raising a bad premonition, because although today was not the day the Guardian would appear, this was not a good sign. He gripped his sword tightly. Then he shouted loudly to Seo's group, "Everyone, we have to leave here quickly. End this fast." Jigo's mood was extremely urgent. One thing he realized after a long time as a guide was that guiding new hunters was not a game. It could even become the toughest challenge for those who just became players and had no experience. Just as he thought this suddenly, he heard a shout. "Zagun! It seems he's injured in the leg." Zagun's shout immediately distracted the other team members. This was exactly what Jigu feared most. Just one small mistake could cause the entire group to be wiped out. Things got worse when Jigu's bad premonition came true. The level 4 Guardian had appeared. With his experience, Jigu knew they could not defeat it, so he shouted loudly for everyone to prepare to run. At this time, Jaegwen was injured and had to rely on Seong Pizel to stand up. Han Yun was also not doing well. Now Jigu took out a smoke bomb from his pocket with a strong effect, threw it toward the Guardian and the monsters, then kept urging the remaining four to run quickly, because this was their only chance. Then, relying on his experience, Jigu led them to a seemingly safe cave. Only then could they breathe a temporary sigh of relief and relax a bit. COP asked, "What was that just now?" It looked like a giant, large-brained creature. "That's the level 4 Guardian," Jigu replied. "I don't know why it suddenly appeared, but for now we have to observe the situation." Fortunately, the group still had enough food supplies to hold on temporarily while waiting for the rescue team. However, the difficult problems did not stop there. Han Yun had been unconscious since earlier and still had not woken up, looking quite uncomfortable. Jigu checked and immediately realized she had been poisoned. Goblins must take an antidote to recover. When Jigu said he had brought antidote medicine, the other three breathed a sigh of relief, but he rummaged through his backpack and couldn't find it. Jigu tried to recall his memory and then realized he had dropped the antidote pills while fleeing from the Guardian. Negative emotions immediately overwhelmed him, although they had hurriedly run away at that time. But Jigu did not expect to make such an amateur mistake. He tried to calm down because this was not the time to be shaken, so Jigu decided he would go out to send a distress signal. When Jigu said this, all of Songpi, Zaegun, and Seonggu both firmly opposed it because they thought it was too dangerous, but Jigu reassured them that he had already gone through several rounds of guiding new people and was getting tired of it. "And I only went to the nearby hill to catch fireworks. I know I don't look like it much, but I'm the best level 1 in the world." Jigu spoke calmly, but in reality, those were just words of encouragement for the CMP group. Once out of the cave, everything became much more difficult due to the appearance of the Guardian, so the movement direction of the monsters all changed, making it hard to predict where they would be. After a while of groping around, Jigu had to abandon the old route to find another way because too many brains blocked the path. In his pocket, he only had one smoke bomb left to save him. This time, Jigu followed the steep cliff and successfully approached the hill at this speed. He would arrive there in about 3 minutes and had to shoot the fireworks quickly, then return to the cave. As long as he didn't encounter the Guardian, it would be fine. Just avoid it, Jigu thought to himself. But usually the thing people fear the most arrives the earliest, because right after that, the level 4 Guardian suddenly appeared behind him. Jigu faced it directly but couldn't fight it, especially being ambushed like this. So he was punched hard by the Guardian, flying straight into the cliff. Jigu coughed up a mouthful of blood, his whole body aching as if his bones were shattered. But he still had to try to throw the smoke bomb to limit the opponent's vision. Then Jigu picked up the firework launcher, aimed it straight up, and decisively fired a shot. The signal for help was completed. Now he had to figure out how to escape from the Guardian's grasp. Jigu stood up and started running. First of all, he had to keep the distance between him and it. Jigu understood this guidance screen the best, so he believed there must be a way, and then the gate leading to the 5th floor suddenly appeared before him. The level 4 test was a sorrowful ordeal for Jigu. That gate was something he always wanted to jump into, giving up everything, but because of his family, he couldn't. Behind that gate was a place that seemed to be waiting only for death for a level 5 like him. Why did I come here? Jigu approached the gate and bowed his head on it. At this moment, he really wanted to cry. He was just someone who couldn't even handle level 4, so how could he get to level 5? But behind him, the Guardian was crazily chasing. If he didn't go up to level 5, he would surely die here. Jigu gritted his teeth. Staying here would definitely mean death, but going to level 5, he wasn't sure if he could survive. So he definitely had to choose the second option, because at least there was still a chance to struggle otherwise. Jigu had entered his first test. Giguk reluctantly entered level 5, but after confirming the player's information, the tower announced that his ability was not confirmed, leading to the difficulty of the challenge being continuously reduced, and Giguk's first test was simply to hunt a goat. Jigu stood up staring at the status window, seemingly unable to believe what was happening before his eyes. He only needed one breath to take down that goat. And the tower immediately sent a notification that he had passed the test, thereby determining his job and discovering his unconfirmed ability. Jigu passed the stage perfectly and easily. At the same time, he received his first reward. Holding the sword in his hand, Jigu kept trembling not because of fear, but because it felt unbelievable. He had already prepared himself to sell salt when entering here. But unexpectedly, he only had to face a goat. While staring at the goat's corpse, Jigu suddenly felt something unusual coming from behind. He turned around and saw a dense black aura approaching, then engulfing him. Jigu didn't know what it was, but in the blink of an eye he was swallowed by it and lost consciousness. Who exactly are you? Jigu woke up because of a strange voice. He looked around in confusion, not knowing where he was, but continued to hear that voice. Are you my master? This time he could hear more clearly that it was the voice of a boy. Jigu stammered and asked back, What master? Damn it, an idiot can't even answer a question properly. Are you really my master? The voice suddenly rose sharply, making Jigu feel extremely insulted. Fine. I've waited too long anyway, so whatever. Choose a name for me. Giggles up to now still truly does not know what entity is communicating with him, but it seems like it is trying to ask him to connect with it, so he still agrees to connect with it. This experience passed very quickly, just like a kind of hallucination shortly after. Jigu woke up and found himself lying on a hospital bed. The first thing that struck his eyes was the worried face of his younger sister Ayu Dung and Tae Sik. He thought he had fainted for only a short time, but in fact it had been 2 weeks since he was found unconscious at the door to the 5th floor afterward. Jigu could only hear what had happened from Tesik. After the guild players saw the flare, they managed to corner the bodyguard and bow. They entered the 4th floor before the door to the 5th floor, but ultimately let him escape. Although feeling a bit annoyed because they couldn't catch the bodyguard, Jigu felt relieved to see COP's whole group. They were rescued and all safe except Jagun, who was injured and had to use crutches. The rest were fine in the following days. Jigu continued to stay in the hospital to recover. His mother called several times, feeling very guilty seeing herself as a burden causing her son to take risks. Earning money like that? Of course, Jigu kept comforting her. They said you will be discharged soon. Mom, don't worry, and please rest soon. The insurance has already covered all the hospital fees. So Mom, don't worry. Knowing Yudung was beside Jigu also reminded her not to come to the hospital to visit him anymore. Stay home to take care of Mom. Only then can I rest assured to hang up the phone. And only after hanging up the phone, Jigu dared to let out a sigh. Even after passing the 5th floor, things still went against his hopes. Jigu was still stuck at level 1. However, a major change occurred when after waking up, Jigu found an additional ring on his hand. After discharge, he returned to his daily work. New hunters seeing Jigu reappear in the world, many couldn't help but sneer. Is that really him? The one famous as the guide who couldn't level up. However, this time someone else spoke up for Jigu, though not exactly defending him, but just correcting the information. Because recently he had become famous for a different title. Now people called Jigu the butcher of the guide section, unlike before. When he used to take it an hour to defeat a goblin, now facing a whole pack of fierce orcs and goblins, Jigu was very confident from the strange ring on his hand. He took out a sharp black sword. A good weapon combined with years of experience fighting on the lower floors of the tower gave Jigu absolute confidence, and this time, he dealt with the monsters in the blink of an eye. Both speed and attack efficiency reached perfect levels without question. Jigu fought more and more enthusiastically. That was a feeling of happiness and vitality he had never experienced since awakening as a player until now, all thanks to the fate with that mysterious entity. Going back to the day Jigu fainted. He named it Lu, The day Lu was born, Jigu officially awakened his ability. His profession was a companion of the ego, and his special ability was linking with his ego. Although Jigu was still stuck at level 1, his ego Lu was different. In a very short time, it rose from level 1 to level 7 with 18 strength points, 18 dexterity points, 7 endurance points, and magic power. After Jigu defeated all these monsters, Lu's level even jumped straight to 8 surprisingly fast. This exhilarating feeling was hard to describe when just days ago Jigu was scared stiff before an orc. But now he leisurely picked up a bunch of crystals dropped after defeating them, going back a month before when Jigu discovered he had awakened a special ability. Still a question mark all this time. He was so eager that he rushed to the tower right after discharge, although he could imagine his sister's fury then. But Jigu still decided to teleport from the hospital bed here to test the new ability. After all, he couldn't sit still when his status window finally changed after 5 years. At that time, Jigu still didn't know how to link with what was called his ego. Thanks to reading web novels over 180 minutes a day, he finally came up with a way striking a cool superhero transformation pose, then loudly shouting the 2 words link. However, nothing happened. Luckily, Jigu was alone at that time, otherwise he would have been so embarrassed that even the monkeys on the mountain would have chased him away. He was very troubled. He didn't know how to use that power. He even gave it a name, Lu. Just when Jigu was at his most frustrated, suddenly, a sphere appeared in front of him along with a notification that the ephemeral ego Lu had been summoned. At that time, Lu did not yet have a fixed form. Because Jigu was not skilled enough, his ego would be randomly chosen to form a physical body that would freely absorb matter from the surrounding environment. Jigu listened and became even more confused. What does it mean to freely absorb matter from the surrounding environment? But the answer quickly appeared before his eyes. Because from that sphere suddenly emerged a strong suction force that pulled everything around it, including Jigu and the equipment on him. Jigu desperately tried to hold on to his gear. Because of these items, even the cheapest ones were worth up to 50001, but the suction was too strong, so in the end, Jigu could only blink as the sphere swallowed them whole. It even sucked off his clothes. Even his underwear was not spared. Jigu had to risk everything to hold on to his waistband, otherwise he would have had to wrap banana leaves to go home. It seemed the sphere had absorbed enough matter from the surroundings. The wave then stopped, and the sphere began to change, emitting a dazzling light. It took a long time before Jigu's vision was restored, and what was floating before him now was a black sword sheath with a glaring red eye. After getting acquainted, Jigu realized that the sword was his ego Lu. At first he was skeptical, but its cheeky tone was exactly like the voice he heard when he fainted on the 5th floor of the tower, so he believed this was real. He asked it to explain a few things because at that time he didn't even know exactly what an ego was. Is an ego a soul? Not a soul, I don't even know what it is. Hey, stop touching my body, you pervert, Lu shouted when Jigu kept fondling it. He tried to endure it since this was a breakthrough in his special ability. Although it was a bit rude later, Jigu still had to rely on it. Hey Lu, can you move on your own? He asked again. Oh, not yet. But maybe later. Oh, okay. Can you sever the link with me and change masters? That depends on the ego's master. It can't do that. I see. Next question. When you can move on your own, can you attack me? Attacking you is possible, but if the master dies, the linked ego also disappears, so practically speaking, attacking your own master is quite impossible. Hearing this, Jigu's mouth twitched. Finally, he asked a concluding question. Can Lu feel pain? Even though it is currently in the form of a sword, Lu's answer was definitely yes. Because it is a great ego, not just emotions. As long as Jigu sets it up, all his senses can be 100% replicated on the ego's body. Hearing this, Jigu completely understood Lu's weakness. He immediately stood up, grabbed a rock, and approached it. All right, I've been holding back for a long time, you little bastard. And he threw the rock straight at it. Lu used force to teach it the lesson of first learn manners, then learn knowledge, so it wouldn't dare to be cheeky with its master him anymore. With such harsh colonial-style discipline, Lu really became much more obedient and well-behaved in the following days. It accompanied Jigu to attack the tower continuously, absorbing blood and experience from monsters to level up, and its stats increased relentlessly. Jigu was very satisfied, because this not only brought power to him, but above all now it was very sensible. Today our loot bags are full, so Jigu decided to go back and rest. On the way back, Lu complained that it was eager to go outside. To satisfy his ego, Jigu decided that next time, instead of entering the tower, he would enter a gate. However, when he returned, T-Shich advised him not to enter any gate for the time being, because recently many abnormal gates have appeared, and the latest incident involved 4 high-rank named individuals dying in a gate in America. The abnormalities of these gates were also different, like a gate showing rank F but actually being rank C, or some gates having very strange structures. This has never happened in the past 23 years. But for the past month, Jigu has been continuously appearing, and after hearing him speak, I felt a bit uneasy. Because exactly 1 month ago was when he found Lu, but then Jigu also reassured himself that maybe it was just a coincidence. Seeing that he did not speak, Tae-Sik continued to advise. I'm not saying you should never step through any gate again, but I just want you to be safe during this current chaotic time. I know you're very excited to finally be able to use your supernatural power, but please be patient. Jigu knew the other party only wanted the best for him, so he did not object. Then the two said goodbye, and Jigu left the headquarters to return home. Not being able to enter the gate made him quite frustrated. Whether it was pure crystal rare items or mission completion rewards, no matter what, those gates clearly brought greater profits than the tower. Although Tae-Sik advised Jigu not to go. But above his head was a huge debt which forced Jigu to quickly earn money to pay the interest. Anyway, those abnormal gates were quite rare. Jigu didn't believe his luck was that bad. So he still went online to look for recruitment information to find members to enter the gates together. After choosing a mission suitable for himself, Jigu dialed the phone number to contact the poster. Outside a building, people were coming and going busily. Samsu stood up to shake hands and greeted Jigu. Very nice to meet you. I am Ha Samsu, and I am the team leader for this expedition. I am Kim Jigu, the one who contacted you. He wondered, is this your first time gate hunting? He bowed slightly, about to sit down, and upon hearing this, he looked up and replied, yes. Song Su's face became serious when hearing Jigu confess, I'm still familiar with strategies for clearing stages and similar things. He immediately took out a contract and placed it down. The introduction stated this was a contract, but things like profit sharing and breach fees were quite standard. You will see when you read it. We decided to equip dice. While Jigu was reading carefully, Su reminded him, we will meet at Gaguri at 2 o'clock in 2 days, and remember not to be late. The magic gate was like a deep circular whirlpool. Gates were usually divided into 2 groups, one-time gates that disappeared after being cleared and fixed gates that did not disappear and allowed re-entry. Many people stood outside waiting to enter that gate, although the rewards from fixed gates could not compare to one-time gates that offered many special rewards. But many people raided these gates. Because the raiding strategy was widely publicized, the risk was lower. The torches hanging on the walls were still lit, and a voice announced, if you have finished checking your equipment, then let's go. The sound of hurried footsteps on the road, everyone quickly and without hesitation moved forward. Each person carried armor on their body and walked slowly. On the somewhat dark road, only a few torches lit the way. Jigu curiously glanced around once and suddenly thought to himself, they all look strange. They all came here through job introductions like himself. Jigu glanced at the couple right behind him and silently guessed that those two probably knew each other. Song Su suddenly looked up as if noticing something. He raised his hand, ordering everyone to hold their positions. From the deep darkness, some mysterious sounds echoed, adding to the fear. Song Su quickly took out a bow and signaled, they are coming! A whole group of crazy zombies rushed out from the darkness, making terrifying noises. Song Su's eyebrows furrowed, and he shouted loudly, Tanko, listen to the order fly. Hun smiled excitedly and charged forward. Yes, sir. He just raised his large shield and could block a zombie. Jigu held his weapon tightly, jumped up, and shouted loudly, close combat, kill them all, come on. Shu aimed his bow with focused eyes, shooting an arrow straight at a zombie's head, making it fall backward. Another zombie was cut in the neck by a sword. Deo swung his sword powerfully, attacking with a satisfied grin. He fought while complaining that this group was excessive, especially since they were already rotten like this. Deo swung his sword, fiercely attacking with a grin of satisfaction. He fought while complaining that these guys were coming in excessive numbers, especially since they were already rotting like this. Suddenly, a shadow flashed past Deo, making him puzzled. That shadow was Jigu, who used lightning speed to surge forward through the zombie horde. Attacking all 10 at once, one by one, the zombies gradually decayed between Deo and Byong Hun's open mouths looking up. Even Song Su and Gazan, with mouths agape, froze and looked up. Byong Hun sat down right beside him, continuously praising, looks like this time we'll finish quickly thanks to you, Jigu. Deo smiled warmly and agreed, "Isn't it you who said you're level 7? I feel like I'm starting to get tired." You smiled faintly and replied, "Just lucky." Baeong-hun immediately brushed it off. "No, if you're modest," then he continued. "You also contributed the most when defeating that mini-boss." Baeong-hun suggested, after sweeping through, "Let me join your group." Jigu forced a smile but didn't respond. He glanced up secretly, feeling grateful. Luckily, he didn't seem to mind, but Jigu felt inside that behaving like this in front of the team leader was not polite. Baeong-hun spoke up. "Today we benefited a lot from you." They both continued. "I was about to say that." Jigu politely replied, "It's nothing," but inwardly he confirmed that even if they said no, it was true. Then Shu approached and announced, "All right, everyone, let's move on." Jigu stood up quickly, silently asking if Ru was ready. Ru replied, "Zombie blood is useless, master." He reassured, "We will soon reach the boss room, just hold on a little longer." Baeong-hun and Deo whispered something together. Suddenly, the two of them smirked slyly. The five of them walked to an iron gate, constantly exclaiming, "This is the boss room." Jigu wondered silently. "Are these iron bars to keep the boss monster inside?" Song-su spoke up. "Now I will explain the method to defeat the gatekeeper, Talon." While he was speaking first, Talon is a giant vampire. Another voice interrupted, "Really?" Baeong-hun showed irritation and impatience. "Do you think we didn't research anything before coming to a fixed gate? Hurry up, we're wasting time." Hearing that, Song-su frowned and emphasized, "Listen, even if you know one person's mistake can endanger the whole group inside the gate." He clicked his tongue and criticized the delay. Seeing this, Gazan's face darkened. He clenched his teeth. Wrinkles appeared on his forehead, sensing Song-su was glancing at him. She, startled, relaxed her facial muscles. Gazan looked up at him silently. Song-su continued speaking, so I will continue explaining. It seemed Jigu noticed the signals they secretly exchanged. That was very strange. Earlier, he had briefed right after we melt the iron with acid and enter the boss room. "Talon will sit with his back to us as soon as they step in." A whispering voice rose. "He's bigger than I thought." Song-su's hand was in a bow-drawing position. "First, I will hit him with an explosive arrow. I'm coming." He shot with great force, shaking the earth and sky. Talon roared fiercely that would anger him, and he swung his fists wildly. Baeong-hun also shouted fiercely. To the point the wrinkles on his forehead were clearer than ever, Talon crazily swung his fists forward at our tanker. Baeong-hun had to block those attacks. Baeong-hun gritted his teeth, raised his large shield, struggling to block the terrible attack. As he stepped back, Deo and Jigu simultaneously rushed forward to attack. The most important part was when he bent over to change his attack attribute. The two of them ambushed from the front and back. Talon used his glowing red eyes to glance behind. His defense would triple, blocking most of the attack effects. As Talon lowered his face, a voice rang out. "Jigu, it's your chance. Something triples defense." Baeong-hun shouted orders. Jigu immediately dashed like the wind, but Jigu's attack would at least damage him a little from above. He aimed straight down to finish Talon. The system notification startled. Jigu's synchronization rate with Du has increased. Now you can use Du's abilities more effectively than before. He gritted his teeth, used lightning swordsmanship to slash straight down without hesitation. System notification: gatekeeper Talon has been defeated. Hearing that, Deo and Baeong-hun were once again surprised by Jigu's power. Gazan and Samsu were also very surprised, gained experience points. You killed the gatekeeper with one strike. Hearing the system notification, he widened his eyes, gained more experience points. Your stats slightly increased thanks to Thailand's blood system notification. You have acquired the skill Cannibalism. Cannibalism restores health by eating corpses. Seeing Talon lying on the ground, everyone started shouting, "What the hell is this? No way." Jigu Baeong-hun joyfully and wildly shook him. He begged, "Please give me your contact information." Deo also excitedly ran over to me. Jigu awkwardly waved it off and said, "Let's talk about that later." Zhongshu seriously spoke up. "Everyone listen. The equipped item, a paralyzing dagger, just dropped." Deo ran over, screamed once, then continued, "Not only is it easy to eliminate, but it also drops equipment items, right?" Song-su Cho said, "As stated in the contract, now I will roll the dice to decide the reward distribution." Baeong-hun put his arm around him and whispered, "Hey, Jigu." He smirked and provocatively said, "Don't you want that dagger?" Jigu looked annoyed and glanced sideways, thinking to himself that he kept acting superior. Baeong-hun's face broke into a sly smile. "Honestly, you basically did all the work. Deo and I will handle it, so just go along with it." He looked at Jigu silently, guessing that Jigu couldn't ignore them after this incident. His eyes glanced around. "I help you and you help me." He couldn't help but pay attention to those two. After 5 years as a guide, Jigu gradually developed an eye for people. Close combat Choi Deo and tanker Byung-hun, he didn't expect much. But unexpectedly, they wanted to do something like that. Jigu silently observed the others. Meanwhile, the team leader, Song-soo, and the girl whose name he didn't know, Song-soo, spoke up. If everyone is ready, let's start. Some doubt still arose in his mind. He wasn't sure, even though they seemed to be hiding something. He gently took something out from his sleeve. Now I will take out the dice. Byung-hun subtly signaled Deo with his eyes. Suddenly, Byung-hun jumped up from his seat, gripping the weapon tightly in his hand. Byung-hun smirked smugly and lunged to attack. Although Cho's blade came close, Song-soo remained calm and silent from afar. Jigu ran over, trying to push his hand away to stop him. He pulled Byung-hun and rushed to another spot. They both slammed hard onto the floor. Jigu pressed Byung-hun's head down firmly. He gritted his teeth and said, Jigu, I thought we were on the same side. If I act rashly now, I might die. Then Byung-hun shouted loudly for help. Deo, do something! Deo trembled in fear and shrank back. His eyebrows furrowed, not daring to step forward. Jigu's eyes suddenly became serious and worried, thinking, almost. Byung-hun shouted, just kidding, I'm only joking. He could have died already. He used a scrutinizing gaze to glance up. It wasn't team leader Ha Song-soo, but that filthy bastard. Suddenly, an image of Gazon with glowing red eyes and a fierce, terrifying expression appeared in Jigu's mind. He didn't even see her draw the dagger. Thinking of this, his face darkened and he silently wondered, isn't she a mage really dangerous? Jigu glanced at Song-soo, assuming Ha Song-soo was the same. He recalled the moment when he calmly faced the dagger. It was aimed at him. He didn't flinch as the blade swung toward his throat. Instead, he just sat and watched. Suddenly, Jigu bluntly questioned, who are those two? Song-soo slightly tilted his head, his mouth curling into a faint smile. Actually, we wanted to ask you the same question. While holding Byung-hun down, he pressed further. What do you want to do with these guys? Deo knelt down, trembling in fear, loudly confessed. He said I'd be paid as long as I followed orders. I don't know if he really intended to stab you. Song-soo didn't answer, but asked, why are you asking me? Jigu calmly replied, after all, you're their target. He raised his hand to support his chin, looking thoughtful for a while. Then Song-soo turned and softly called Gazon, as if understanding. Gazon immediately cast magic. A black aura radiated from her body, her eyes blazing red. Jigu's eyes widened in disbelief at what was happening before him in an instant. Gazon shot forward at the speed of light toward Deo, striking him hard in the back from behind. Seeing Deo about to fall and smash his face on the ground, Jigu thought silently, just as I thought, she's very dangerous. His eyes widened and looked away. Suddenly, Jigu slammed Byung-hun's head down to the ground, knocking him unconscious. Afterward, he stood up quickly in front of Song-soo's witness. Jigu raised his hand with a somewhat surprised expression, wondering if it worked. He was about to bend down to pick up the dagger on the ground and said, anyway, I'll take this dagger. Song-soo immediately wondered why. Jigu casually replied, I saved your life, so I think it's okay for me to take this dagger. He was immediately brushed off by him. I think that's a bit much. Song-soo's words carried a hint. An item like this is nothing to someone like him, right? Suddenly, Jigu looked up cautiously, and confusingly, he immediately questioned, do you know who I am? He spoke while glancing slightly behind the gaze-on area. If you have someone like that as a bodyguard, it means you are not an ordinary person. I am not interested in you. I also don't want to investigate or flatter you at all. Suddenly, Jigu's eyes lit up. Tell me I will handle these two guys for you. I plan to hunt a bit more before returning. Ru transmitted information through thoughts. That girl named Gazon is very dangerous. He replied, I know, that's why I only talk to them. Should I run away or something? That's even more suspicious. Du was surprised. You know they are dangerous, but still let those suspicious guys stay with them. Why even strip them of their gear? Jigu continued. After all, I saved his life. He spoke up and added, thanks to that, we can stay and grind like this. The system announced, you have absorbed the endurance of zombies. How do you feel like having two hearts? Have you heard of pub guns? Du immediately reminded the owner, I'm a bounty hunter and I repeat, zombie blood tastes awful. Jigu waved it off. All right, we will go outside. No more zombies and we have absorbed enough blood. Ru absorbed stats skillfully through blood strength from goblin stamina from zombies, so his stats are much higher than normal for his level. He said, "The iron gate has been destroyed for a while now. Stop by the reward room before leaving." Jigu stood before Talon's body at the reward room, a cramped space only accessible through the gatekeeper's corpse. He raised his hand slightly, intending to touch it. As the name suggests, it's the place to receive rewards after clearing the gate. In his heart, Jigu called Ru, who responded, "Yes." He pressed, "Has there ever been anything like this before?" Ru answered immediately, "No." Jigu touched the glowing wall, agreeing, "Right inside it looks like a hollow." He raised Ru to ask for opinion. "What do you think, shall we break it?" Ru replied, "I agree, master." Hearing that, Jigu swung strongly forward. Just as he broke the wall, Ru shouted to stop. "Wait!" A thick layer of dust surrounded the atmosphere. Jigu waved away the dust and asked, "So much dust, what do you think?" Ru only replied, "Ego." That made him confused. Hearing this, Jigu widened his eyes in surprise. "I sense another ego here." He wondered, an ego in a place like this. An ego glowed amid the thick dust. Jigu kept wondering as the ego emitted gray dust smoke. How is that possible? Are egos common? Then what have I been doing for the past 5 years? Vu hesitated. That's because the master is you. He continued, "What?" Ru tried to calm him. "Nothing, master, just find the ego, it's somewhere in here." Stepping into the thick dust, Jigu coughed a few times. He looked up and realized, this gate is too old. "There's probably nothing left," Vu said, "I told you." "I think there is an ego here. A shiny white sword with a bright glowing blue gem." Jigu stood before the sword feeling strange. "What is this, Excalibur or what?" He asked for opinion. "Should I take it?" Within 3 seconds, Jigu grabbed the sword, intending to pull it out. Suddenly, the gem's light shone even brighter. The light was so strong it seemed to swallow everything. A gentle voice sounded as Jigu's eyes slowly opened. "Are you my master?" He raised his hands. A pure white space appeared similar to when he met Du, but the feeling was very different. Jigu floated in the bright white space, hazy and vague. He asked, "Are you the ego inside this sword?" The ego immediately replied, "Yes, I have always been here waiting for a master. Will you answer my call?" Hearing that, he sincerely confessed, "I'm not your master yet, but I want to silence that ego." After a moment, he proposed, "Then please choose a name." Jigu emphasized L. "From now on, your name is L." Returning to reality, he still stood there, holding the white sword tightly. The faint light shone on Jigu as he looked up with somewhat hazy eyes. This second time, there was no feeling of strangeness, because he had already experienced it once. Suddenly, a loud noise startled him, eyes wide open. Small stones cracked and fell like rain from the ceiling. Within 3 seconds, larger stone debris also fell. Ru shouted, "Run, boss!" Worried, he urged the master to run. Jigu looked around and shouted, "I know already." Ru immediately questioned, "Who are you?" Io confusedly asked back, "Who is asking?" Ru arrogantly and confidently replied to me that he is an excellent and great ego while Jigu was busy fleeing from there. Angry, he shouted at the two of them to be quiet immediately as he stepped out, suddenly pausing, thinking about the sharpness of his talent. He had to go to the reward room. Suddenly, a large rock fell, startling Jigu. His eyes opened wide, looking as if worried about something on the floor. Gigu's feet stood on a very fragile boundary as the floor seemed about to crack. He opened his eyes wide, determined, reaching out and shouting, "Please, please." The system asked if you want to go to the reward room. Jigu immediately urged to hurry. His eyes looked down, gritting his teeth to endure. Suddenly, Jigu's eyes widened as he saw something surprising when the gate opened, revealing a giant orange-yellow pupil. A crowd of excited people lined up outside, waiting to enter a fixed gate that had been destroyed unprecedentedly for unknown reasons. On the screen, news reporters were talking about the information that the timing of the unusual incident coincided with the formation of multiple gates, causing a long-lasting major debate about the positive aspects. Because Jigu had left there a long time ago before the gate collapsed, he was not suspected. The screen displayed the reward. Passing the level grants 30 purple quartz and an additional reward. A talisman, an item that prevents common illnesses and prolongs life, which ordinary people can also use. Jigu and Sudong stood beside his mother's hospital bed. Although it was still not enough to cure his mother's illness, it was still useful, and the money he received from the quartz helped Jigu transfer her to the hospital where she seemed to improve a bit. The sky was clear outside the tall skyscraper. After deciding to climb the tower once more to the 5th floor, as he stepped up, he couldn't help but gape, looking up at himself. He had heard that the inspection floor was quite developed due to the lack of monsters, but this was just an ordinary city. Jigu walked on the crowded street. People passed by and through the 5th floor, where he was found unconscious as well as alone, with a sword fighting a pack of wolf beasts on the 6th floor. Then came another group of monsters defeated by Jigu on the 7th floor. After that, he and his teammates continued to fight on the 8th floor. In front of Jigu were towering mountain ranges. He held the sword firmly in both hands, and on the 9th floor, 2 gems on the 2 swords simultaneously emitted light. He had never dreamed of this until recently. In Jigu's mind appeared Sugo's words, "Rank is not important." Those words kept ringing in Jigu's ears, and as long as he did not give up, finally his special ability would unfold. Jigu slightly smiled inwardly, affirming that Sugo was right. The 2 rings on his hands also began to glow, seeing that Jigu lifted them up, smiling with satisfaction. Leveling up was quite good. Because experience was divided, leveling up was a bit slower, but thanks to synchronization, he also felt himself getting stronger, he thought silently. I thought it was extraordinarily strong because maybe there was a demon sealed inside it. But about the demon, sorry, I don't remember anything. Suddenly, Jigglypuff recalled the giant bright yellow pupil. The demon was that giant eye, he muttered, speculating. While pressing on the system panel, it seemed like he could be stronger if he had more egos. He thought he had to find more egos. Rue asked, "Do you know where to find them?" Jigu was very confident and immediately replied, "I know a place outside the building." The clear sky and sunlight made the auction house even more dazzling. An announcement echoed in the crowded auction hall, sold for $170,000. In his heart, Jigu silently questioned, "Do you feel anything?" Du thought for a while, then said, "No, I haven't felt anything yet." He was disappointed, thinking he should have known that egos couldn't be so common. The unfinished sentence made everyone more curious. The last item of the day, a shiny bracelet appeared, and the main item of the auction was the Wounded Warrior's bracelet. Everyone who saw it couldn't help but admire it. It was an item that would increase regeneration speed. At the same time, Rue and Elle both confirmed it was an ego. This made Jigu's eyes widen in surprise. The sunset sky gradually turned orange, layer by layer, with fluffy clouds drifting lazily. He walked alone on the crowded street, people passing by. Jigu's face was tired and exhausted. He didn't expect the auction to be so tiring. Everything was so expensive. Elle explained, "It's the main item, so there's no other way." The owner bluntly criticized the poor owner. He forced a smile to comfort himself. At least the paralysis charm sold for $100,000. Du seemed about to be speechless at the owner's strange expression. While speaking, Jigu smiled frighteningly and said, "Elle, let me kiss you all once." Du immediately scolded, "Are you crazy?" Elle tried to call out and stop the owner as Jigu stepped out of the convenience store, saying, "Thank you for coming again." He walked while talking on the phone. "Yes, I'm on my way back. Is there a problem?" "No. Yes, there is a problem." Jigu immediately complained, "It's hard to find the team. I just left the gate." And the player was even more troublesome than the monster. The person on the other end shouted loudly, "What? You entered the gate? I told you to be careful now." Jigu fearfully stammered, "It's an F-rank gate. I know I'm only level 1 with basic equipment. I can't get a player rank, so I can't solo." The other side sympathized, "I know I can't do anything else." He continued, "See you later." The night sky had covered the entire city. Jigu reminded, "Don't forget I said I would treat you to a meal to celebrate your promotion." He continued, "It's not that I don't like climbing the tower, but Du also needs to grind, so progress is very slow." Step by step climbing the stairs slowly, Jigu's gentle voice sounded, and the reward from the last gate was also very good. He sighed and said, "Well, one way or another it will work." "I have taken care of urgent matters." Jigu smiled, lifted the bag, and bought beef. Io kept praising, "You are really modest, despite just earning some money." Du immediately thought it was stingy. Hearing that, he almost scolded, "How do you feel lately?" "Since the last time I reformed your character, huh?" Fearfully, he replied, "I'm sorry, Jigu, troubled by thoughts of wanting to earn a lot of money and move elsewhere as soon as possible. I want Du to be able to go out more safely." He quietly climbed the stairs. Suddenly, Jigu noticed something in midair. A small cluster of light appeared unexpectedly. "What is that?" The light burst larger and larger in front of him, each ray seeming to cover the entire city. Jigu wondered, a gate. The screen displayed standardized text about gate formation. Stay calm. A gate has just formed and is not dangerous. Please assess the situation before calling 112 or contacting the association. Keep distance. Entering an unclear rank gate is very dangerous. Even if you are a player, entering a gate without association verification will result in up to 5 years in prison, or a fine up to $10,000. Collect reliable evidence. If there are many witnesses present before association verification, conflicts may occur. If you witness an incident alone, please leave evidence. Priority and privileges will be given to the first person who finds it. Korean Player Association. The Gate Supervisory Board head TXO sat attentively in front of the computer looking to see. He took a cup, moved the mouse, and clicked somewhere. TXO smiled, holding the cup of water, murmuring with satisfaction near Jigu's house. He sipped the water while reading a report suddenly sent. TXO choked on the water. Water splashed everywhere. Other employees outside couldn't help but notice his startled shout. Kim Jigu spoke up, "If you don't enter the gate within 5 days, the conquest right will be lost and auctioned." The employee carefully reminded, "There are other conditions as well. Please remember, thank you for the quick report." Tae-sik stood waiting, then slowly stepped up and asked, "Done very diligent." He suggested Jigu talk a bit. He immediately agreed, "Okay." The two of them went into a nearby coffee shop. Jigu wondered, "Is it too sweet?" Tae-sik stirred his coffee and replied, "Not sweet at all. Coffee should have syrup added." After saying that, he drank the water in one gulp, then slammed the cup down on the table with satisfaction, even knocking his player ID card onto the Korean Player Association. Tae-sik asked, "Accidentally an S-rank gate, huh? Are you confident?" Jigu smiled and waved it off. "Come on. You shouldn't underestimate me. I'm much stronger now." His face showed obvious disappointment and gloom. "I didn't know about that. But I know you are very stubborn always. Stop laughing, damn it. What floor are you on now?" Seeing that Jigu smiled lightly, then said, "Floor 11. Today I just passed floor 10. Tae-sik asked about rank. Jigu didn't answer, but bluntly said, "You already know." Suddenly he spoke a single word that startled Jigu 4 days. Tae-sik's eyes looked straight with determination. Jigu didn't answer, but bluntly said he already knew. Suddenly he spoke just one word that startled him 4 days. Tae-sik's eyes looked straight ahead with determination. His firm voice emphasized, "Complete the preparations in 4 days, then come with me." Jigu asked confusedly, "Why?" He only lowered his voice and replied, "I want to see if you're okay when you go in. If you're not well prepared, I won't let you go at any cost." Scene changes to 4 days later. Around the room were weapons prepared in advance. Only Jigo's voice echoed, "Unexpectedly, something like this exists in the basement of the building. This is a training room, but it's just not used much these days." You look up and silently think about expanding the space with protective barriers around the walls. Surely I have underestimated the association. Tae-sik stepped in and questioned, "How do you feel?" That inevitably startled Jigu. He asked if he was interested. "There is a position in that association." Tae-sik adjusted his sleeve cuff and calmly confessed, "I think you would make a good intermediary, or another position would also be fine." Jigu flatly refused immediately. "Thank you for the suggestion, but I have to decline." You scratched your head shyly and shared, "I don't want to settle anywhere yet." Tae-sik's calm voice sounded, "Is that so? You will always be welcomed here, so just say a word." Suddenly, Jigu remembered someone and immediately inquired, "What about Taeoban, the guide who disappeared when he was promoted?" He then continued while still rolling up his sleeves. "The Caravan Guild Gate, right? I think he joined there. He is very different from the resilient kid I once knew." Jigu couldn't help but be happy to hear that news. "Great. I have to visit him sometimes. Although I have never heard of that guild." At some point, Tae-sik's 2 hands were full of veins. Jigu pressed on like this. "You said we will fight without weapons." He was startled and exclaimed, "What?" Suddenly Tae-sik's eyebrows furrowed. His gaze seemed disdainful. "Oh my, it seems like you are underestimating me because I have been too busy with office work lately." He reached out to a small layer of bone, which suddenly dissolved in a circle as the wind blew in. Jigu stood still increasingly. The wind approached, making him open his eyes wide in surprise. In an instant, a strong wind blew, making Jigu stagger and unable to stand firm. Tae-sik's confident words and gaze sounded, "You couldn't hide your fear. Once an expert, always an expert. Don't underestimate someone who was once a Dan Sao." His whole body was suddenly surrounded by a cursed aura. "Stop joking, get up." In his heart, Jigu thought he knew he couldn't defeat him, so he decided, "Then I will learn a bit, but I won't back down before fighting." When looking up suddenly, Jigu was startled, opening his eyes wide. Tae-sik stomped strongly. Another strong gust flew to him. Jigu immediately stood to block that wind. He tightly held the sword in his hand and gritted his teeth, enduring Gigu's 1 foot brushed aside just as T6 lifted his foot to attack again. Jigu held the sword firmly, intending to charge. He asked, "Are you sure you are prepared?" You did not answer, but kept panting. Dan Sao is still Dan Sao, after all. It reminded T6's pale face as he shouted loudly, "Focus losing vigilance at the gate means death." Panting, Jigu looked straight ahead with determination. He said, "Right, I have been too arrogant." He gritted his teeth, enduring thinking if he had prepared a plan. Scene changes to 4 days earlier, East Demon District player item auction market. Rue said, "What are the items for? There are no items better than ours, boss." Jigu lifted the phone to answer while brushing it off. "Not like that, I still don't have any good armor." He said, "I can't keep wandering around like this. And who knows, maybe I will find a true self." Io continued, "I will let you know as soon as I sense one nearby." Master, under the clear sky, the sunlight shone brightly. The voice echoed, "Look around." Jigu was suddenly attracted by a set of iron armor in the shop. The system recorded it as useless iron armor from a clumsy blacksmith. Normal rarity effect increases defense by 9 points. He quietly turned and looked around at the sets opposite. Jigu bent down to look at the price, startled. The system recorded it as useless armor from a clumsy blacksmith effect increases defense by 7 points. He left and sat down by the roadside, depressed and gloomy. Both Elle and Rue couldn't comfort Jigu, who complained that cheap stuff was terrible and disgusting, while good stuff was disgustingly expensive. Not easy at all. Rue and Io simultaneously called out boss matter. Outside a shop, an adult and a child were arguing. Mitsu shouted loudly, "That's not true." "Your grandfather was a great artisan," the adult dismissed. "Equipment that cannot display item information. What's so great about that?" The boys still thought Uncle Sai was wrong and the old man was very skilled. The other person then disdainfully said that advertising a store that doesn't do business properly is useless. Even if you go, you'll just be kicked out again. From afar, Jigu approached and called out, "Hey, Min-Soo." Surprised, the boy turned around to look at him, and Jigu suggested that the boy lead the way for him. Jigu bowed gently and spoke about the boy's store. Hearing that, Min-Soo immediately agreed, his face lighting up like a star. Yes, the two of them quietly went down to a basement level. Jigu still felt doubtful inside. "Are you sure?" Elle and Rue answered firmly, "Yes, master, absolutely sure." Rue explained that all the clothes the boy was wearing were egos. Elle explained that they were created by humans but still somewhat held the power of an ego. Rue was angry and scolded. "Don't say what I want to say anymore, damn it." Min-Soo opened the door, smiling brightly, and called out loudly, "Grandpa, I brought a guest here." The old man gently reminded Mitsu, "Didn't I tell you not to bring guests here?" The boy replied, "But I want everyone to know about you." The old man then scolded him, "You also have many beautiful clothes, so why are you wearing the ones I made? Your father will be angry if he sees that." Jigu quietly looked inside the door. Suddenly his eyes lit up as he sensed something. "This has a fragrant smell," he emphasized. Jigu stood still in front of the dark room filled with items. Everything here was ego. He looked at the items in the storage room. He couldn't help but exclaim, "How can one person—" Rue continued, "They all only have one Rue," affirming that all were egos. Jigu wondered, isn't ego the English word for banga? "Why are you standing still in front of the room for so long?" The old man propped his chin with his hand and bluntly said, "Not for sale, so please leave. I have no intention." "Selling to those who don't understand the value of the item?" Ji-chun, the blacksmith, said while flipping through pages of a book, his voice low and sincere. "This isn't the first time. I've met people who look down on this work." Suddenly, GGYU spoke firmly, making the old man look up. "I will buy it." Ji-chun waved his hand dismissively. "I said no sale. People like you wouldn't know how to use it even if you bought it." "You wonder if I can use it, then you'll sell it, right?" The old man showed disdain. "Ridiculous, please leave." But Jigu seemed uninterested and kept raising his voice, searching for an unnamed level 79 sword. Ji-chun was startled, jumped up, and shouted loudly, "Don't tell me." "You can see the quality of each sword," Ji-kyung said calmly. "Of course you have this ability too, right?" Hearing that, the old man exclaimed, "Oh my," then softened and smiled, suggesting, "Then try your luck with it." Finding someone who understands and deserves the weapon in their hand is the greatest wish of every blacksmith. GGYU silently, gently stroked the shiny blade. He raised the sword high, deciding that from now on its name would be Satanist. Seeing this, the old man was wide-eyed and open-mouthed in surprise, and even Min-Soo was very surprised, staring wide-eyed. However, the sword did not light up for a long time, and the space became very quiet and awkward. He guessed that maybe it didn't like this name very much. Jigu hesitated and wondered, is that so? Jigoro and Teshiro stood facing each other, preparing for the fight. His eyes blazed with fire, emitting a murderous aura. In the blink of an eye, Jigoro dashed quickly forward toward him. Like a gust of wind carrying the power of lightning and fire, the electric flame flew straight at the opponent. Despite the sword gradually moving toward him, Teshiro stood still, unshaken. Jigoro gritted his teeth, determined, gripping the sword tightly, and swung it hard. As soon as Jigoro struck, the opponent easily blocked it with one hand. "You two?" Tessic frowned, showing wrinkles, shouting loudly. "I can still feel your hesitation when swinging the sword. Using all your strength aimed at the target, you think this small effort is enough to scratch me." Jigglypuff gritted his teeth and endured, his eyes blazing fiercely. His opponent was a fairly high rank. He tried to remind himself to focus. Jigglypuff raised his sword, intending to strike. Immediately, Tessic dodged the blow again. Jigglypuff kept swinging. Tessic dodged behind. He turned to attack again, but was blocked once more. It seemed Jigglypuff's strikes did no harm to him. Tessic raised his hand to punch. He immediately ducked to avoid the blow. Jigu swung his sword again to strike. Just as he lowered both swords simultaneously, Tessic stepped back. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't defeat him. Jigu's eyes widened in surprise. Tessic seriously looked straight ahead, bent down and threw a punch with his palm. As he approached, Jigu reflexively raised his sword to counterattack. The scene changed as he lowered his head, puzzled. "Why can't I connect with them? Are these the egos, Rucho, or are they just second-rate items? Not only that, egos are usually very strict in choosing their owners. I'm not too difficult, but don't think they can be like me. Aeolian comforts me. I like you, master. You have to decide. I will try one last time." Vu smiled faintly and said, "Give up." Jigu irritably questioned, "Since when did you learn to talk like that?" "You seriously placed your hand on an item named Branheart. Suddenly a light emitted. That light attached to you. The system announced connection established. You have just connected with an ego Branheart. Due to lacking some skills to use, you will not be able to fully utilize all Granthurst abilities, losing almost all ability to switch scenes back to reality." Tessic's fist punched hard into Jigu's body, immediately emitting light. Granthurst, level 7, power 15, speed 3, durability 40, mana 6, additional skill increases defense 12. Granthurst regenerates accumulated damage. His face showed clear confusion. A burst of power exploded from Jigu's whole body, flying straight backward, hitting the wall hard. His eyes rolled, white mouth coughed painfully once. Then Jigu collapsed, face hitting the ground, coughing continuously. Still trying to stand up, a bottle of water was thrown in front of Jigu. Tessic suggested drinking it. "This is medicine for internal injuries," he sneered. "My hands are shaking so much I can't even open the cap." He said, "You are past it." Jigu looked up blankly. "What, Tetsuya?" He smirked and affirmed, "I just said that." "You are past it. I thought you couldn't even touch a single hair of mine." But Jigu thought silently, "This method is not a coincidence. Did I go too easy?" Suddenly, Tetsuya questioned, "What do you mean just now?" Giggles smiled and replied, "It's my item," he continued. "If within 1 week from today, you still can't pass the stage above, I will send someone down from now on. Hope you get lucky passing the level." Tessic turned seriously to remind, "I give you 5 days only. If you can't pass within that time, forget it. I will go in to rescue you." Jigu awkwardly tried to stop him. "No need," he didn't let him finish and interrupted. "That way is much cheaper than paying transportation fees for agents." Tessic asked, concerned, "Did you bring enough medicine and food?" Jigu answered, "All good." He asked again about smoke bombs. "You answered, of course." Tessic reminded, "Even if this is a ranked stage, don't be complacent." Jigu immediately obeyed, "Okay." Ru wondered, "Isn't this gate the same level as the zombie gate? Why get so nervous? It doesn't look very dangerous." You smiled happily. "He is like a father, so it's natural to worry." Jigu turned back and said, "I will definitely return." Tessic smiled and replied, "Okay." You turned your face and stepped straight into the gate. The system announced, "You have stepped through the gate." Jigu silently hoped this was an easy gate. Ru asked, "What is the reward?" He gently replied, "I earned quite a lot of money." Ru wondered, "How do you know if this gate is easy or hard?" While answering, Jigu glanced around anyway. "I have to get through it." His face darkened as he muttered, "Because this is a ranked stage, there is a chance of a difficult tower or dungeon gate appearing. As long as it's not a maze level, I can get through all." Jigu firmly held the sword praised. Well, he slapped hard the wolf beside him. His lightning power spread in the wolf's mouth, making it seemingly unable to resist. Jigu stomped hard on the ground. his face serious, looking back time to stop chatting. From the darkness appeared a pack of wolves ready to attack Jigu. He smirked. Leveling up, the white wolf was sliced straight down the middle of its face, splitting its body. Thanks to that, L also successfully leveled up. Jigu held the spear horizontally and continued charging into the white wolf's den to finish off the remaining ones. Notifications popped up continuously in this life-or-death battle. Granhard increased accumulated damage facing the attacking wolves. One slipped through to attack Jigu's blind spot, but he was not afraid, even smiled mockingly. The small mouth screamed in the dark cave. Rue's ability. Instantly, the white wolf opened its jaws, biting sharply, but at that moment, a pillar of light shot straight into the cave, blocking all sight. Jigu probably finished off all the wolves. He sat down heavily, sighing. To rest a bit, Vu quickly spoke. "Human, don't be rude to your master." Jigu ignored. He pulled his sleeve to look at the watch. It's already been 5 hours. Sitting, collecting Lu in the cave, he kept staring blankly, wondering unknowingly that around him appeared faint purple stones because they were named stars. So there was no difference with the others anyway. It was easy. Jigu took some tough food, trying to bite it while mumbling that with his level it was not easy to get in here. But this time, thanks to luck, he kept questioning himself, thinking he definitely needed to reach rank A, but this rank was classified without relying on any device. If I am far from my ego, I will only have skill level 1, which is unpredictable. Tranzigui remembered the calm face of T-Shich and commented that even Tae-Sik-hyung could not do anything. This ability was really true. After eating, he twisted the bottle cap. The voice still continued to sound. "Once the owner's skill levels up, no matter how far apart we are, the Lord will still maintain the connection." Jigu raised the water bottle to his mouth and took a sip, hoping so. "But I still don't know what will happen after leveling up. What form it will turn into?" Ru continued to speak with a moral tone depending on the ego, but Jigu couldn't stand it anymore and flicked him, threatening, "You talk too much and are always sarcastic." "Be careful, I'll hit you." Ru sharply retorted, "You already hit me." Gigi still sat leaning against the rock, mumbling to himself. Besides not knowing how to improve, he also didn't understand this rule level 17. Strength 40, speed 54, durability 50, mana 34, supplementary skill cannibalism. Reading the last few words, Gigi was startled. Cannibalism, really? Cannibalism, really like that? Cannibalism, you do that? Ru, after hearing that, shouted back loudly, "Are you crazy, human?" Jigu laughed slowly, stood up, then briefly explained, "Just kidding." He slung the backpack over his shoulder decisively and moved on. Rested enough time to leave. But he suddenly hesitated when he felt the backpack on his shoulder was a bit cumbersome. His pouch was full of items, and especially the healing smoke bombs. Should he buy a bigger bag? Suddenly, Jigu thought of something. His eyes widened as he stared at 3 bottles with 3 different colors lying in the corn medicine basket. If he drank these, he would have more space. Without thinking much, he clicked his tongue and quickly decided to use them all. Might as well. At this moment, Vu suddenly screamed a warning, sensing a strong energy source coming from the other side. Near the boss door, surely inside, Jigu leisurely poured all the corn medicine bottles into his mouth, replying, "He already knows." "That's why I'm drinking medicine here." He anxiously stepped into the dark cave. The path ahead still showed no one, so he impatiently asked Vu, "Are we almost there?" Jigu began to feel restless. If this continued, the potions he drank earlier all lost their effect. He repeated the warning words. The voice just said, "I sense a strong energy source." This time he deliberately emphasized more. "I think we are almost there." After walking a bit further, Jigu suddenly saw a faint light shining ahead, a light maybe from a torch. Perhaps the boss was there. Vu hurriedly urged, "Let's go see." He put a finger to his lips and whispered to him to be quiet. Ru complained, "Anyway, no one can hear us." Jigu agreed and gently brushed it off. "All right." Then he used telepathy to remind him, "Ru, don't lose to the owner." Ru got angry and stubborn. "Then take care of yourself." Finally, he saw the silhouette of Jigo. Flickering appeared at the boss cave entrance he was searching for, sleeping soundly on the grass. Its presence seemed overwhelming. Moreover, the dungeon's energy was unlike talent. Attacked countless times, this creature had the quality of a lord, but seconds later its blood-red pupils stared fixedly at him. The white wolf wagged its tail lightly, then proudly stepped forward. The monster held the dragon vein of the entire dungeon, so it was called by a very impressive name. Gatekeeper, the Gate Guardian. Ru immediately shouted excitedly, "Wow, impressive!" Ron Hood worriedly reminded, "Be careful, Master Jigu." Already feeling tense, he gritted his teeth and actively raised his weapon. The pressure was much greater than Talon's. This was truly a real boss. Before he could react, the boss dashed forward. The grass where it stood gently shook, dust just barely flew up. The gatekeeper, with its striped red dragon eyes, shot like an arrow toward Jigu, who raised two swords crossing in an X. His eyes fixed on it, not daring to be careless. Teeth clenched, the gatekeeper's large jaws opened wide. Jigu struggled to block it, losing balance. But luckily, you managed to hold on. One foot stepped back to regain balance, but Jigu still didn't dare to take his eyes off the boss holding the sword, whose grip tightened more and more. He quickly launched a strike. He slashed straight at the white teeth, but his sword hadn't yet pierced through the outer skin. Not to mention stabbing into its mouth, Jigu frowned, feeling uneasy inside. The boss's pupils glowed brightly, a blazing hatred burning wrinkles forming at the corners of its eyes. Showing it was baring its teeth fiercely, the boss slammed its body down hard, deliberately trying to throw off Jigu's sword. He was stunned by this terrifying defense and counterattack. Then the boss bit onto his backpack, stretched its neck high, and with four legs jumped up, preparing to run in the opposite direction to escape. Dust rose thickly, stones and leaves swirling in the air. The ground shook violently and dust clouded the air, making Jigu quickly crouch down and cover his head. He struggled to defend against it, which was taller than he expected, having no choice but to accumulate damage. But then, the corner of Jigu's mouth slightly curled into a somewhat amused smile, completely opposite to the confused look 3 seconds earlier. He looked at the goalkeeper, not bad at fighting tough opponents. While pondering, Jigu recalled the intense battle moments before. His backpack was quickly discarded. His body accelerated forward, then lifted the boss's head higher. With both hands wielding two swords powerfully, he declared fighting tough opponents was his specialty. A second later, the ground witnessed another terrifying impact. That shockwave was caused by Jigu landing with fierce energy. Now he and the monster locked eyes, the boss howled eerily and charged forward relentlessly. It lunged to grab Jigu, who quickly raised two swords in front of his face to block the gatekeeper's fangs. The clash sparked flames, and even more terrifyingly, the sharp teeth caused the black. Jigu's sword broke in half-black shards, falling freely in the air. Jigu tightly clenched his teeth, nerves stretched like strings, constantly moving to escape this dangerous situation. He slashed stripes across the boss. The sword's path created intersecting light trails in the air. Jigu slid far back, his body covered in scratches. The boss's mouth was now wide open, drooling greedily and making disgusting noises. Moments later, the space cleared, heavy breathing sounded, and Jigu sat exhausted beside the boss's corpse. Breathing, he felt lucky, almost dying. He approached the monster's corpse, telling himself the effect of the corn medicine had just worn off, and without Brandheart, he probably would have lost. He still insisted that talent was not comparable to this one. Even though he had just won, Jigu raised the black sword gently to say goodbye, thanking it for dying by his hand. Each tip stabbed into the thick fur skin, black blood spurting out continuously. The system repeatedly popped up. You have defeated Boss Changkyun. You received countless experience points. Changkyun's blood granted you speed stats. You received skills from Changkyun's blood, rapid durability recovery when taking damage. Finally, the carnivorous skill was activated, which made him somewhat uneasy. The lush green grass was now stained with a few black blood spots. The boss's corpse was placed into a pit, the black sword still stabbing deep, causing blood to spurt continuously. Jigu stared blankly without blinking. The space suddenly became eerie, dense, magical energy shifting in the air. The system sent notifications. Ru has absorbed Changkyun. You have successfully transformed Changkyun into an ego. The boss's spiritual power condensed into a blue stone. He asked confusedly what was going on. Ru was clueless and replied, I don't know either. I've never heard of a monster transforming into an ego. Jigu felt tired and decided to put this matter aside to investigate later. He continued to inquire, what about you? She honestly admitted, me too. Her voice was full of embarrassment. I'm sorry I couldn't help, Master. Jigu showed no displeasure, only asked softly, really? Ru then felt pitiful and asked why he hadn't told her. He hurriedly said that transforming into an ego meant Ru carried Changkyun's ego inside her. She immediately denied it. No, I have nothing. Did you hear what I said? Jigu sat dazed, muttering, then what is this? El had never used this skill before, so he guessed wildly but was unsure. He then ordered the info window named Kim Jigu, level 1 profession, ego collaborator, unique ability. Link power ego synchronization skill requires Changkyun. After reading the info, Jigu was suddenly wide-eyed. Got it. So how do you use or loudly shout the skill name when you suddenly remember the image of yourself struggling in the previous battle moment? Squinting eyes full of caution and hesitation, he finally clicked his tongue and cleared his throat to make a decision that made Song Kiem curious to try later. Just wait and see when the time comes. Jigu brushed off his bottom and stood up, thinking he had to understand the use of eating meat. His face instantly became excited when he found a green crystal even better than the famous purple crystal. And with this size, it must sell for a lot of money. Walking slowly and leisurely across the grass, he hummed happily. Now it was time to go to the reward exchange room. However, even if Jigu opened his eyes wide to look carefully, he still saw nothing appearing, so he panicked it was not here. Song Kiem also hurriedly followed him, asking what was going on, what happened to the master. Jigu stood thinking for a moment. To enter the reward exchange room, he had to touch the body of the gatekeeper. But then he discovered it and screamed the ruin of Changkyun was gone. Where was the ruin? Sadly confiding why it was always his fault. Inside the gate was a place where the sun never set. On only the second day, he had passed all the stages. The ruin anxiously asked if it was necessary to search. He did not take much seriously what he was doing, acting as if it was useless and a waste of time. El also suggested stepping outside to seek help, which was a good way, hearing that Jigu firmly opposed, saying it could not be done. If suddenly something abnormal happened, like in Guri City, they would start watching me. He turned to look at the stone slab in front of him. If there was no way to answer, even if he escaped outside. Every second that passed, his determination grew stronger. The door appeared interrupted and caused many casualties. I must finish what I started. I think I am the cause, so I must find a way to solve it myself. I deeply admire my master's responsibility. Happy as usual, harsh words are also good, but are you sure the master can clean up all the mess he just made hearing him? Jigu's anger choked in his throat, silently cursing Tae-sik-hyung, who would come here in 4 days, so we must try to avoid the worst scenario. Hearing Tae-sik's name, Lu suddenly felt interested. That human was quite impressive, he admitted, of course. The best way is still to quickly resolve the doubts before then. 2 days passed. On the 3rd day, he searched everywhere on the meadow but found nothing. Jigu sat leaning against a tree for shade, eating a lollipop, and absent-mindedly asked if they should kill all the remaining monsters. Io enthusiastically agreed, saying that was also a good idea. The Master Du also agreed, a bit simple, but not too bad. So they returned to the initially skipped paths and wiped out the remaining blue wolves. By the 5th day, he continued his work as usual. Wiping out the wolves, looking at the wolf's body collapsing before him, Jigu calculated in his head that this was the last one. El excitedly shouted, "Well done, master." At that moment, Jigu felt confused. What now? He twisted his stiff joints and, wondering why Tae-sik-hyung should have been here already. At times like this, Jigu often came up with bold ideas should he destroy the entire cave or something. Suddenly, both Io and Du shouted in unison. Master Matter both took turns scolding Jigu. Looking toward the place filled with light where all the energy was gathering, at one point he stood stunned. A few seconds later, he panicked and shouted, "Where is it?" Song Kiem continued to point out that it was the place of the wolf guarding the meadow gate. The forest space gave way to the modern world with tall buildings. In a room, a voice scolded him. "If you were just 1 hour late, I would have entered already." Outside in the hallway, there was a sound machine and automatic barriers. Responding to the scolding was a dry laugh. "Almost under the shower with water rushing," a voice asked. "Why are you late?" "I thought with the current skills it should only take 2 days. 2 men were relaxing and chatting. I'll be honest, I defeated the boss on the 1st day. But there was a little problem, so Tae-sik rubbed soap on his hands and glanced sideways at the person next to him. "What problem is there if you defeated the boss?" Jigu was scrubbing his hair while groaning loudly. "The boss's body disappeared, so I couldn't exchange it in the reward room." Tae-sik was very surprised. What he was curious and asked, "So how did you do it?" Jigu answered very calmly, "I killed all the remaining monsters." Now Tae-sik understood partly why he had so many crystals, still carrying it tightly as if it were very precious. Anyway, after killing the last one, all the energy of the gate converged at the boss in the cave at that time. Vu continuously urged his master to hurry up. Jigu frowned, tensed his legs, and sprinted as fast as he could. At the end of the cave, a strong light flashed in, making it hard to see ahead. The closer he got, the more the light blinded his eyes, then gradually the scenery opened up. When Jigu arrived at the cave entrance, he raised his eyes with a face full of surprise that was indescribable. The space before him was covered by a transparent glass layer with different colors appearing in segments as if the whole world had shattered into pieces. And converging at one place, moving toward Jigu, was a small sphere. He reached out with both hands to catch the orb and brought it straight into his palm under his astonished gaze. At the same time, Jigu also received many notifications. You received your ego redirected to the Tessic reward exchange room. Hearing this, he was wide-eyed in disbelief. What are you talking about? Jigu was silent for a moment, bowed his head, thinking about something, then confessed his guess. I think the door is an ego. A vague sound echoed amid the dripping water. After leaving the bath, Tessic said I exchanged all the crystals and rewards for cash and deposited it into your bank account. Probably about $50,000 in total. Jigu simply said thank you, and he put his hands in his pockets, walking slowly, nothing else. Now you're heading straight to the hospital. Jigu nodded and replied, yes, I called her first, but it's still better to meet or she'll worry. Suddenly, Tessic took out the car keys, pressed a button, then pointed. Later, he grinned mischievously. Come on, I'll give you a ride. Jigu refused. He really didn't want Tessic to hear that. So Tessic smirked. What's wrong? If you're a real man, you have to try pink. It turned out Jigu didn't want to get in because the girly style of the car didn't suit him. Sitting in the car, Jigu curled up, feeling very embarrassed, but Tessic was extremely excited. Holding the steering wheel, shouting loudly, "This is what a real man is." The car sped off with the utmost joy of the person inside, accompanied by screams of fear. Inside room 537, a voice said, "All right, as long as you're not hurt, it's fine." Sitting up leisurely, Dudong got up and said, "Let's go drink now." Outside, Jigu and Suzune turned and left. He didn't forget to inform, "I'm going back first. You two continue talking." After they left, Suji lay on the hospital bed, smiling gently, thanking Jigu for caring and taking care of him. He shyly scratched his head. It's nothing. I'm the one who received a lot of help from him. Outside the corridor, the two brothers walked side by side. The little girl yawned until tears came out. He asked Han, "Are you so tired you're sleeping? Have you eaten yet?" Gigu's face was full of teasing, reminding the exam is coming soon. Dudong pouted, looked away, stretched. "I only napped a little." "So still study normally," he gently added. "Don't overdo it. Remember to take care of yourself." Hearing the concern in his words, Dudong also smiled and looked over. "Then let me feel protected." Suddenly a voice said, "Be careful." Someone with an IV drip approached. "Are you Dudong's brother?" The young man, they were surprised to see the old lady, Grandma. The little girl calmly approached Grandma. "You're still not asleep at this hour." She smiled, looked at Jigu, and explained, "I went out to relax my limbs a bit. I heard voices here, so I came back." The old lady glanced as if sensing something. Then she approached, smiling, holding Gigu's hand. "It's thanks to you that Dudong has become a good child." Jigu felt a bit embarrassed. "It's nothing." Her face full of kindness, she held Gigu's hand tightly. "You're truly a vigorous young man. He just followed along. Thank you, ma'am." Then she walked on. "Sorry to bother you two." Both politely bowed. "No problem, please be careful. See you tomorrow, ma'am." Her steps faltered for a moment, then the old lady turned to look at Jigu. The young man looked at her with confusion. "Yes," the old lady reminded, "there are some opposing energies." Gigu's face was full of confusion as he listened to her advice. "Try not to lose yourself." Finally, she turned and walked away. "Hopefully you overcome your hesitation." The two stood silently in the corridor, watching Jigu, puzzled, thinking, what does she mean? He looked at the ring on his hand and sighed. Did she sense something? The next day, at a large hospital in the city, he stood at the door, stretching comfortably after a sleep that was much longer than in that damp cave. This place was like a five-star hotel. Someone approached, startling Jigu. The doctor looking at him, along with the nurse holding the medical records beside him, was the family member of patient Lee Soo-jin right across from him. Jigu calmly replied, "Yes, is there something you need?" He cleared his throat with a serious expression. "Do you have time to talk?" In another corner of the city, the prison gate was open, surrounded by a crowd. Suk-gu smiled excitedly. "Finally, after 3 days, I can go home." "After showering, do you want to go drink some alcohol?" The person beside him coldly reminded, "Drink less beer." "I still want to rest," he said confusingly, looking at Jigu. Suk-gu still suggested something or wanted to switch to soju, then both of their gazes turned to him, whispering, "Isn't that the master assassin?" Seeing that Suk-gu was also excited. "Wow, I'm a big fan. Should I go say hello?" The person beside him encouraged, "If you like, go ahead." Then their eyes gradually shifted to astonishment. On the other side, Jigu bit his lip, tightly confused by their reaction. Wow, his expression is a bit over here. He also recalled what he had heard at the hospital. The patient was currently in a very critical condition. Although she did not show it, her muscles were severely affected. Jigu's footsteps moved forward unconsciously. Inside the hospital room, Du was slumped next to his mother. He stood outside the door, not daring to face her. The doctor's voice still echoed in his mind about the treatment. Even with medication, it won't last much longer. No matter how carefully you care for her now, it's already too late. Currently, Jigu entered the prison. In front of him were two demons holding weapons fiercely. The doctor confirmed there was one last problem, but they did not know the cause. His face was full of panic, stammering, "What is the problem?" He said regretfully, "Unfortunately, all we can say now is, she has at most 1 year left. At worst, 3 months. Currently, Jigu bit his lip tightly, his eyes full of resentment, his body radiating killing intent. The monsters quickly rushed over crazily. He also charged forward to attack them with self-blame. It's all my fault. In his mind, Jigu thought about the door in the past and screamed that it was because he was always shy that they had to suffer. If only he had been braver before. Jigu's body flashed past the monsters with powerful attacks, thinking, if only I were stronger faster. Then heavy rain poured down. His body stood motionless in the rain. Seeing that, Du worriedly reminded him, but he remained unmoved. Has the master gone crazy? Does he want to die? So this is when things start to go wrong. Ao warned him to watch his words. Du comforted her, making Jigu's hand grip the sword tighter. The master's mother's condition was very serious. We could understand how much pain was in your heart. Currently, he could only grit his teeth helplessly. Then, on the 19th floor of the tower, the crowd turned around in astonishment at a pile of messy items tied together. They looked at Jigu's figure and whispered, "How many bags is that? Who is that? Are those all crystal bags? Did he collect enough to use for a whole year or what? Isn't that the person? The one who hunted crazily for 2 weeks. So he's been in here all along? In just 2 weeks, he climbed from the 11th floor to the 19th. Someone approached Han, whose face was expressionless. Hey, is it serious? Do you need help? Seeing that the crowd gradually became cautious, why did they go all the way up to the 19th floor? Their faces were full of malice and contempt. This was the Red Player regular group. The black-faced leader sneered, "Let me help carry that." Hearing this, Jigu also opened his mouth to say something unclear. A burst of energy flashed past, surprising him. His eyes widened. Du's sword rested straight on his shoulder, carrying a suffocating aura and a cold expression. The bastard looked cautiously at the sword near his neck. Don't you know who I am?" Jigu cut him off. "Shut up." His eyes seemed to contain killing intent as he stared at him, nearly saying, "Get lost. Don't even think about taking anything of mine." The legs above trembled as he shouted inside, "What the hell is this guy? He's as cold as a demon." He panicked. So scary. Jigu thrust his weapon right at the opponent's throat and disappeared. His eyes flashed with threatening electric sparks as he growled each word, "And don't be greedy for other stuff." A man in a uniformed vest ran over from afar, shouting loudly, "Hey, what's going on over there?" The Red Player group immediately gritted their teeth in frustration. Damn it, the guild didn't need anyone to order them. They automatically gathered all the items and told each other to run. "I won't forget your face. Consider yourself lucky." Jigu didn't chase after him, but stood still. Very quickly, he heard someone from the guild come to ask what was going on, and he followed reflexively. Turning his head, his lips curled down slightly, and his eyes glanced cautiously. He raised his ID card and introduced himself. "My name is Seong-hoon, security staff of the 19th floor. From the Korean Player Guild, I ask for your cooperation a bit." Jigu pointed backward and expressed his suspicion that it seemed like the Red Players were eyeing his bag. Seong-hoon looked at the bag almost as big as him and smiled wryly. It was so big that he understood why. Then he continued to ask if by any chance he was the player Kim Jigu. Jigu was taken to a cleaner and warmer room, but his face showed discomfort. What had he done that made them put a bounty on his head? By the way, the person who brought me here is named Hel Seong-hoon. The other party gave a few instructions. Please report to the team leader. He promised to give an additional reward. The person opposite him now was Tae-sik, who smiled brightly and said to Seo-hun, "I probably have to double your salary this month already." Jigu anxiously asked directly what he wanted. Tae-sik stopped joking and seriously asked back, "What do you think? Do you really think I would look for you after 2 weeks of no contact in the tower?" Jigu shrugged indifferently just like that. Tae-sik emphasized, "Of course not." Finally, he made Jigu waver with just one sentence. "There is a way to cure your mother." On Taesik's face appeared a trustworthy expression, the only way to cure an unknown disease. "You probably already know, right?" Jigu immediately exclaimed the two words miracle drug, but then he shrank his shoulders full of insecurity, an all-powerful medicine that can cure any disease. But miracle drugs are very expensive. Understanding Gigu's doubt, Tetsuya quickly confirmed, exactly raising 3 fingers to illustrate that only 3 miracle drugs have ever been found. One was at the early stage of the tower's appearance as a reward for Marco Alonso's test, the first to sweep floor 50, Jigu automatically continued. And the other 2 were rewards for passing the gate. Seeing him speak clearly, Taesik leaned forward slightly and remarked, "You know more about this than I thought." Jigu then said that he had investigated many times already. Taesik slightly lowered his face to probe the other party, "So I don't need to tell you, right? The connection between the 2 gates." Jigu continued to inquire about the labyrinth gate. The labyrinth gate, this type of gate, is notorious for its difficulty due to a large number of monsters of various ranks, strong gatekeepers, and many traps, but because it is classified as a mixed gate. Separate from the ranked gates, anyone can challenge it as long as they verify their identity. Taesik paused for a moment, then looked up at the announcement. 2 days ago, the 3rd labyrinth gate appeared in the U.S. Seeing Jigu's shabby appearance, he had to say, "Take a shower before you go. Su-jin will faint if she sees you like this." Jigu hurriedly took off all the stuff. Meanwhile, he still heard the TC's offer, "I will convert the things you bring into cash and mortgage the money without fees into your account. So just leave the bag here." Jigu replied in a nasal voice, "Thank you." In the room, the sound of clicking was heard. Taesik leaned back in his chair, sighed tiredly, and the sunset sky outside cast a faint light inside. Taesik lit a cigarette, looking up at the vast sky outside Kim Hyung. "I have done everything I could think of already." At night, there were still people lingering in the building to investigate further. Jigu stood in the lobby and asked the bodyguard lighting the incense, "Are you Seong-hun?" The man quickly confirmed yes. Seong-hun scratched his head and ears, embarrassed. "The team leader told me to take care of everything if I want a reward, so I was assigned to be responsible for guiding you." He deliberately emphasized that the team leader took care of everything. "All related documents and necessities have been prepared." Seong-hun hurriedly strode away. "We can go right now, please follow me." While walking smoothly, he suddenly stopped when he heard an unfamiliar voice. "Please wait a moment." That day at the 20th floor building, the system displayed a notification. "You have passed the synchronization skill test and evolved into synchronization E. Kim Jigu level 1, a synchronization profession with a special ability linked to the code, can link with the code. Synchronization skill E can use 35% of the code's power." He stood there rubbing his chin, watching it sink into thought. The ranked skill was not very common, even though I could only use 35%. I still felt my body full of strength compared to before the test. Next to Seong-hun, Kim Jigu, the suspicious player, also responded. Yes, he announced it usually takes a day to pass the 20th floor test. Jigu closed the confusing system window, right? So what? His expression was somewhat awkward. Then he went in. It hadn't been 20 minutes. Then he cleared his throat and smiled. "Standard, don't worry, shall we go?" He put his hands in his pockets and asked about our flight time, feeling like he was wasting too much of our time. Seo-hun confirmed we wouldn't board the plane. Hearing that, Jigu also widened his eyes in confusion. Then he added, "We will go to the 5th floor in an open area." The maze tower, although not often encountered, had players from many different countries inside due to the separated area. The tower connected to everywhere in the world. But it couldn't be denied that the tower was linked worldwide. On the 5th floor was the branch office of the Korean Hunter Association, and they stood inside the elevator. Looking out at the vast space in front of him, he was amazed and couldn't take his eyes off it. An elevator inside the building. "Isn't it almost impossible to get electricity in here? How does this thing work?" Next to him proudly explained it was an artifact powered by quartz, then added, "You can consider this entire building an artifact. This place is that important." Jigu smiled skeptically, looking up at them. "How much quartz?" The elevator dinged and he announced, "We've arrived." The elevator doors opened, and what was inside surprised him. Advanced teleportation gates neatly lined up. This was the control center, the International Spatial Teleport Gates. They quickly moved in. Jigu wondered, "I never thought I'd use an International Spatial Teleport Gate. Isn't it said the teleport gates are top secret, managed by each country's association?" Seo-hun went ahead affirming, "Not everyone can use the teleport gates. Head of Division T. Zico is more capable than you think." Suddenly, he stopped and announced, "Here it is." They stood before the door to the USA. The ride-hailing driver was full of joy. "Now let's see." Saying that, he stepped into the gate. "Let's try the fastest means of transportation in the world." Jigu also followed, looking genuinely excited, thinking to himself, "Can this even be considered transportation?" Immediately after they were teleported to Los Angeles, USA, that night the two sat inside the car and he flipped through a stack of some lists. He also sank into thought. There were many high-ranking names announced to participate in this gate raid. USA Iron Seal Arof, Athena Ente, Demon King of Korea. His eyes showed some doubt whether he would be okay standing among them. Finally, the car stopped. They had arrived in front of a military area with tanks and armored vehicles. This was the hell of modern times, it had appeared. A large dungeon gate appeared, the third maze gate, the Heron maze. On the other side, there was chatter band, "Do you know anything?" "I don't know anything." The soldiers looked at Jigu and Seong-hun. "Who is that?" "He looks Korean." Ban adjusted his glasses and said, "I haven't seen him before." Probably from the association, his eyes behind the glasses seemed to see through everything. While he was concentrating, puzzled, the person beside him also looked up and asked, "What's wrong?" Ban replied, "He's just level 1, a rank 1, and has no special abilities." From afar, he hesitated. "Talking to a manager, I don't speak with a surprised tone." "You can't see him with your abilities." He confirmed, "That's right, I'm surprised." This was also the first time she calmed down and raised her glasses. "Is that so?" Her face full of excitement, she took off her glasses. The enchanting ability radiated all around. "He's also my type, really interesting." But then inside the dungeon gate maze, footsteps bounced hurriedly on the ground. On one side, he gritted his teeth and swung his sword to block. Above, a giant spider was spinning webs toward them. Jigu quickly dodged. Then he shouted, "Seong-hun!" Now, behind Seong-hun, understood and rushed forward. "Got it." He raised his spear, aimed, and threw with stronger force. It pierced straight into the giant spider's head. Blood oozed from its eyes, and the spider's body was also pierced. They stopped fighting and sighed in relief. Jigu sheathed his weapon and praised, "Well done." His expression showed some regret. "Already time for you to go." On the other side, he also smiled faintly and nodded. "It has been 15 hours already. Considering the time it takes to return, it's best if I leave now." Saying that, Seong-hun walked towards him, reaching out his hand. Jigu nodded, thanking him for everything so far. "Thanks to Seong-hun, I was able to adapt quickly. He also praised my development speed, saying it was excellent. If I want to thank him, I should treat him to a meal next time." They shook hands with a promise. "I will definitely do that. Return safely, okay? I will meet you again in Korea." Inside the destroyed maze, he confirmed, "Okay." Jigu walked alone also, marking an X on the wall with endless paint to mark the path. "It seems everything here is done." Behind the huge spiders, lying around a week has passed since Seong-hun returned. "Now I can handle 3 giant spiders at once." Without difficulty, he then turned and left. But being familiar with one type of monster means becoming stagnant. His eyes showed some anticipation. "If I want to get close to the boss room, strong monsters need to appear." Giguk picked up something in his hand. "What is this?" Previously, Seong-hun explained this was a spool of Eric's yarn. It's an item that allows him to return to the gate entrance once. It was a gift from the head of the Texaco team, along with a message: "If you encounter a monster too strong, run away." His voice still echoed in my ears. "Don't save it. Nothing is more precious than your life." Jigu pursed his lips, exclaiming, "Wow! I also didn't intend to use it until I got the medicine, even if I had to die." Suddenly, a scream startled him. The 2 rings on his hands also reacted quickly, manifesting immediately. He entered a state of alert, looking around with a very serious expression. "Did you hear that?" The voice of a girl warned suspiciously, "Master, it's better not to go there." But he was determined to move forward. Even if it's a trap, checking it out won't cost anything. It could be a big threat in the future. Bru also agreed, saying it made sense. "Well then, let's follow the Master's will." In a tree, Sudong was tightly tied up. "Help!" Jigu peeked out and saw the girl still desperately calling for help. "Someone save me!" He looked confused in that direction. Too suspicious. On the other side, the girl's body was tightly wrapped by vines around the tree trunk. Jigu was puzzled. How could such a small kid be alone in the gate? The girl was also Korean, and she looked a lot like Dudong. Could it be an illusion from a polymorph trap? Then he imagined a whole story under the ocean. This situation reminded him of the devil-faced fish. Finally, Jigu decided to peek out. "It's best to pretend not to see anything. There are too many suspicious things." Vu smugly said, "What did I say?" He turned to leave. But a resentful voice rang in his ear. "Mom!" Jigu froze. The voice continued. "Sorry I can't pay for your hospital fees, Mom." Seeing that he gritted his teeth, worried. "Master, don't tell me he despises us. Isn't that line a bit ridiculous?" On the other side, Dudong still cried bitterly, with eyes closed. "Mom." Vu said even a 9-year-old wouldn't be fooled. Seeing Jigu's hand freeze, he was also somewhat suspicious. Clearing his throat, the fool suddenly charged straight at the tree. The vines quickly got cut off and fell to the ground. Jigu hugged the girl and rushed out. Currently, Jigu was standing against the wall. The kid was accidentally separated from the group. Sudong sat in a corner, sobbing. "Rep, why are you distracted for just a second?" The girl's tears kept falling. She tightly held a water bottle. The girl's name was Sudong, and she said she had innate talent. As long as someone has talent even at 10 years old, they can become a player. But it's boring when someone underage is in the group. However, it's still worth it because not many people have innate talent. Or someone born gifted. They were reluctantly put into those teams. That's why they brought the girl to such a dangerous place. This also made him silent. Then Jigu handed her a brown cube with a serious expression, instructing, "This is a safe zone device. It's not high grade. So it only lasts for 1 day. But someone might help the kid in time." However, Sudong suddenly stood up and shouted, "Uncle!" He was startled too. The girl's eyes sparkled with pleading. "Can you take me with you?" Jigu coldly refused no. He looked at the girl with some hesitation and reminded her, "You know already, right? If you're a player, you have to take responsibility for your own life. I can't help you more than this, and I'm not old enough to be called uncle." But Sudong still did not give up, raising her head to grab his sleeve. "Please, I'm quite good at supporting it. Will definitely be useful." The trembling little girl was acting spoiled. "I just became a player, so my level is low too." When I told them I had innate talent, Jigu looked down at the little girl, finding it hard to refuse. Sudong's voice trembled as she followed them because they said they would give her a lot of money if she went with them. Finally, he turned his face away. Determined his goal was to sweep the gate, so he did not look back. Next, his voice was somewhat hesitant. "It would definitely be very dangerous, and even though we will share the rewards." He also could not give the kid medicine if they dropped it somewhere. Sudong hesitated. "Are you taking me along?" The little girl let go. Jigu also explained he was just speaking ahead of time. "But if the kid is useless on the way, he will hand the kid over to that group of guests. Anyway, I am not the kid's bodyguard." Accepted, the little girl also shouted loudly, "If you love me, then it's helpless." Because with support, hunting will be much easier. Definitely not because the girl said her mother was sick, or because she reminded me of Dudong. The 2 rings on his hand glowed. Rue helplessly just like that, they were quickly targeted by a monster. Giggles stood in front and shouted, "Sudong, Sudong!" She also stood behind, coordinating, "Yes." His feet were enhanced with muscle strength. Then Jigu leapt forward to attack the monster's body, which was then cut into many pieces. His expression was somewhat determined, his body still lunging forward. In front, another monster stared at him, but Jigu just needed to lightly slash once to cut its body in half. Finally, it collapsed to the ground, creating a strong tremor with dust. The system notified that Vu had absorbed the poison ant's blood, increasing poison resistance for 1 day. They had been sitting beside a stone wall for 2 weeks since meeting Sudong, and hunting had definitely become easier. Sudong reached out to receive the food. "Your cup has increased again." Jigu also happily replied, "Congratulations." The little girl chewed excitedly. "Soon I will catch up to you." He glanced away, feeling a bit guilty. "Probably not." Jigu's eyes looked big, seeing something. He turned around and announced, "Missed, I sensed someone." The little girl was still dazed. He hid behind the wall, quietly observing behind her. She tilted her head and saw the person behind. Jigu was somewhat startled. That was a leader fully equipped. Behind was a crowd densely packed. He also recognized the giant guild led by a famous Iron Heaven master. Jigu's expression was somewhat apprehensive, hiding behind the wall. If he was a famous master, he would have sensed his presence. Finally, his eyes became determined, scrutinizing once more, deciding in his heart. "I could be attacked if mistaken for a spy, must run fast." But something shot over, causing the wall to explode. He ducked to avoid it in confusion. The smoke gradually cleared. Jigu opened his eyes and looked forward, frowning at the thing that had just attacked him. Jigu sat on the ground looking at the sword stuck firmly in front of him, full of fear. Meanwhile, Iron Silver still maintained his heroic posture. Seeing this, another person looked puzzled. Guild leader, why did you throw the Kallian sword? Hearing this, the opponent immediately looked at the giant sword in the distance and replied, nothing, I must have been mistaken. Deep in the deserted mountain crevice, two people, a man and a woman, were breathing heavily and exhausted. Sudong showed a weary face. Why are we running? We didn't do anything wrong. Jigu was kneeling on the ground, taking something from his bag. We did do something wrong. If we met them normally, it would be different, but we were following them. Following can lead to sudden attacks, so players are forbidden to do that. While speaking, he handed a water bottle to the other person to continue. But rarely does anyone suddenly attack like that. Here, drink this. Thank you. The big guild has many enemies anyway. At this time, the backpack's mouth was still wide open. After a while, Sudong sat cross-legged, pressing close to the person, asking, so what do we do now? Do we need to take a longer route to avoid them? Immediately, Jigu seriously replied, no, we will keep our distance and follow them. He half closed his eyes slightly, tilting his head to one side, thinking, think differently, it will be better. If we go the same way as an experienced group, it's likely we are on the right path. As soon as he finished speaking, Sudong widened his eyes and replied, I understand. The scene shifted to a ruined city wall with a red-painted circular symbol. At this moment, Jigu immediately turned his head back. See? There are also marks here because the Ironstone Guild has killed all the monsters. I don't have to fight anymore, and there is no danger from traps, which is quite convenient for us. You open your eyes wide and observe now. I just need to find the boss room first, Sudong. When he didn't see the other person, Jigu was a bit confused. Where did the girl go? He stood still, staring in one direction, still holding tightly onto the long sword. Something was coming from somewhere. A warning voice rang out, dodge, you fool, dodge, the master is behind you. Iron Seal looked at Jigu with stunned eyes. Found you, you bastard! At that moment, he glanced back, and immediately a hand stretched out and slapped Gigu's face. His face was pressed tightly against the stone wall. I couldn't do anything. Jigu gradually lost consciousness and fainted. Scene changed. A slap landed on his cheek along with a shouting voice. One side of Gigu's face was scratched. He glanced at the person speaking. Finally, he opened his mouth but still didn't say a word. Then Gigu's hair was grabbed. Iron Seal brought his face close to Gigu's. Who hired you, you damn spy? After hearing that, he couldn't help but show an angry expression. Damn, I don't know, English spy. He knew I was following him. Meanwhile, Iron Seal kept questioning, who are you? How did you deceive my senses? If you're honest, I'll kill you without pain. As soon as he finished speaking, Jigu suddenly shouted loudly, kill! Please don't kill me, I'm not a spy, just a hunter just hunting. At the same time, the other seemed to realize the problem, you can't speak English. Maybe he was acting. The guild leader glanced sideways and clicked his tongue. Well, let's see. Then that guy called someone else, Rogers. Immediately, the other respectfully bowed and replied, yes, guild leader. That person is a player who announced joining the Ironstone Guild, an American of Korean descent. Rogers Han, does he know he's Korean? Rogers squatted in front of Jigu and said, hello, you know me, right? I'm quite famous in Korea. I even teach, do you know the club? I'll skip the introduction. He raised a bag containing small bottles and continued, yes, I know you're Korean because of this in your luggage. Wow, these things are expensive. Rogers gently said, sorry for the harsh greeting, our guild leader is not in a good mood. As soon as he finished, Jigu was very stunned. Oh, he's quite friendly. Bringing an interpreter means he wants to talk right. After a while, he began probing, so why were you following us? Which group do you belong to? How did you deceive the guild leader's senses? After hearing that, Jigu immediately showed an innocent face. Following, it's all a misunderstanding. I came here to hunt. And I'm a normal player, not belonging to any group. He still tried to explain, I didn't do anything stupid like deceiving his senses. I thought you already knew I was there. So I thought you were okay with me. Instantly, Rogers smiled slyly. ZZ, I understand. At that moment, a blade was taken out of its sheath. Rogers raised it high in front of Jigu, then suddenly, without hesitation, stabbed down. At the same time, Ji-hyun broke out in cold sweat, clenched his teeth. He screamed in pain. Seeing that Rogers sneered, this guy is too weak. He kept mocking the opponent. I don't know what brought a loser like you here. But from the start, how dare you deceive us? Rogers smiled devilishly. Hunting, huh? I'm sure your eyebrows are aiming for the elixir, right? Behind the captain was talking to someone. Ruth took the sword and examined it. Indeed, it was a strange sword. I can't see the sword's status window, and it's too dull compared to its appearance, so it can't cut anything, even the skin of an orc. After hearing that, he immediately fell into deep thought. Then he clenched his fist and ordered, We can hand it over to the blacksmith after returning. For now, keep it." As soon as he finished, the old man replied, "Yes, guild leader." Bruce couldn't help but praise, "Wow. Compared to your holy sword, Callian, this is just a piece of scrap metal." Scene changed to bottles of potions scattered on the ground. Rogers shook the items. He spoke, "Expensive medicine, fast healing, huh?" He deliberately teased the opponent. "No matter how many times I stab you, you won't die." Rogers looked at Gigu's face and reminded him, "Don't make that face. I thought you spent recklessly, so I only used them to help you." "Right." His face suddenly darkened. "So spit it all out quickly, bastard. Whose dog are you?" But Jigu was not afraid and hid it. "I already told you. I lied that I was going hunting, but I actually came here alone." Suddenly, a slap from the sky hit your cheek again. Rogers seemed to have lost patience. "Do you think we're joking?" At this moment, Gigu's hands were still tightly bound. He continued listening. "We used a check to see your stats before you woke up. Even the rope binding you isn't a special item, just an ordinary rope." Rogers angrily asked, "Do you think I would believe that? A person who can't escape normal ropes by themselves would come here alone. Do you think I'm stupid?" Suddenly, from behind, a voice called Rogers to come eat first and then continue listening. Rogers' eyebrows furrowed slightly as he struck Gigu's stomach again. Rogers left while reminding, "You'd better not pretend, smart guy." Meanwhile, Jigu kept trembling, unsatisfied with himself. He repeatedly told himself many times that he realized he still lacked a lot after fighting Tessic. He leaned against the stone wall, having successfully conquered the maze, a challenge he had almost 0% chance of passing. Even knowing it was impossible, he couldn't give up the thought that maybe he could do it. A rope was tied around his hands, but all he trusted were a few borrowed powers. They only needed to take away his weapon. At this moment, Jigu was alone in the meadow, and I will become useless like this. In the distance, someone's hand curved to form binoculars. A blonde-haired woman lowered her gaze and said, "Estimated distance 2 kilometers high, chance we will scout near the checkpoint for a while." She slightly turned her head back, asking what she would do, but the masked person remained silent. Jigu, full of wounds, bowed his head. "Hands and toes cut 27 times, bones broken, 63 times punctures and cuts 121 times, and tortured about 200 times. On the ground lay countless empty medicine bottles scattered around where he was imprisoned for 4 days since being captured by the Iron Seal Guild. Iron Seal stood with one hand on his hip, stubborn indeed. If he were more talented, I might have recruited him already. Jigu just bowed his head silently. Seeing this, Iron Seal immediately called his group to bring this guy's sword here. This made the other person a bit confused, both of them. Immediately, Iron Seal quickly replied, "All right then." Looking at the battered guy below, he said, "I intended to melt them down and recycle, but I changed my mind. Someone like him deserves my sincerity. I will personally kill you with your own sword." Iron Seal glanced at his opponent. "Your grieving soldiers will be your grave. When you are buried with the gate, it will go down in history as a rather rank D death for a player, huh?" At the same time, still gripping the sharp sword hilt, Iron Seal put on a cold expression. "I will send you off quickly." After saying that, his sword immediately slashed toward Gigu's torso. He stood with legs shoulder-width apart, ready to stab. Meanwhile, Jigu remained motionless. Around him appeared countless red lightning bolts linked to his re-established ego. The rope binding his hands snapped. Jigu, like a madman, rushed forward. His hand quickly grabbed a sword and pointed the longsword at Iron Seal's chest. Seeing that, Rogers immediately widened his eyes and mouth in shock. Others became extremely angry. Suddenly, his face returned to normal. At the same time, Iron Seal caught the sword tip barehanded from the person in front of him and quickly sneered. "So you were hiding your cards all along? No wonder. I thought I sensed the Demon King's energy. It's no surprise if she is interested in you," Jigu kept mocking. "It seems she treats you like a toy." A thought rose in his mind. He didn't even bother to move at this moment. Iron Seal spoke again, "But how did you fool the check? Even the Demon King can't. He clearly stated his purpose. I still need to get more information from you." At this point, Jigu clenched his teeth. It seemed he had no choice but to use it. These two people faced an uneven battle. Athena, in the dark corner, coldly ordered an immediate attack. An object was shot toward Iron Seal, flying through his palm. Seeing that his eyebrows furrowed slightly as he carefully observed and commented, an archer's arrow missed. At the same time, Athena suddenly appeared. Athena precisely, another voice also continued. "Long time no see Iron Shield." Hearing this, Iron Seal couldn't contain his anger, breaking the arrow and dropping the fragments to the ground. I think this is a declaration of war against the Iron Guild, right? Immediately, Athena did not hesitate to provoke. Your sense of humor is better now. The iron shield she wielded with her staff. Is there ever a time we don't fight each other? Both quickly entered the battle. A powerful gust of wind rushed toward Iron Seal. Seeing this, he remained calm, drew the sword from his back, gripping the handle with both hands and thrust the tip forcefully into the ground. From below, blue-green energy radiated from the earth, and a symbol instantly appeared in midair. Two streams of energy clashed, creating an unprecedented explosion. A nearby large tree was uprooted by the strong wind that struck the faces of the others. After a moment, Iron Seal suddenly glanced back at Rogers, the scout, ordering him to capture the living spy. Hearing this, he didn't hesitate to reply, "Later." Iron Seal began to skillfully spin his hands, swinging the cold blade horizontally, his eyebrows furrowed tightly. "Today we will end this once and for all." Facing him, Athena stood in a combat stance, her face fearless, silently observing. Meanwhile, Iron Seal rallied the entire group to prepare for battle. As soon as he finished speaking, a simultaneous sound echoed from the deep mountain crevice with dazzling rays of light continuously appearing. Everywhere were blinding lights. In another scene, Rogers tilted his head slightly and said, "Just hearing this gives me chills. They really are monsters." His eyes were soulless. "Sometimes I wonder if they are gods fighting each other." Looking at the opponent, Rogers asked, "Do you agree?" At this moment, he was still alone, seemingly saying, "You can only stand there. The guild leader told me to let you live, but he raised his sword in front of me. It wouldn't be surprising if I said I accidentally killed him while he was dying," he said. Rogers suddenly disappeared into thin air, then abruptly appeared beside Zigai. "I can't let you live after you know my true face." Rogers fiercely swung his sword forward, a slash nearly cutting Zigai's neck. This scene made Jigu fearful. Suddenly, he shouted loudly and counterattacked. Seeing this, Rogers still didn't understand. He aggressively charged at the opponent. Brownheart retaliated with the damage received. He clenched his teeth in horror at the final blow. Then a huge explosion occurred immediately after. After a while, the scene returned to normal. Rogers lay sprawled on the ground, trembling uncontrollably. Opposite him, Jigu gently wiped the corner of his mouth, breathing heavily. Grand Blue had reached its limit. Grand Blue was breaking apart. Jigu held the sword in his hand, looking disheveled. An announcement sounded, "Grand Blue has reached its limit." Black blood spread, soaking Grand Blue's clothing as it shattered. Jigu stepped toward the person lying on the ground, then slowly raised his sword, preparing to stab down. Seeing this, Rogers showed a stunned expression and said, Wait. He kept trembling and groaning, "Forgive me." However, Jigu's eyes darkened, and he did not hesitate. He stabbed the sword into the opponent's body coldly. Rogers' face showed pain, eyes rolled back, mouth spewed blood. His weary groans echoed in the air. At this moment, Jigu finally bowed his head, rolling onto the green grass, eyes half closed. Because he had Ru, the damage level was not too severe. Almost touching Iron Seal now, but reflex power is terrifying. I can't stop the bleeding anymore. Jigu's face slightly grimaced. This is the limit. Suddenly, a voice hurriedly asked, "Appa, are you okay?" Before him was the pitch-black figure of the girl who kept calling Oba. Seeing this, he stammered, Dudung, not understanding if she understood, then explained. "What are you talking about?" "Oba, I'm Sudong." Jigu's eyes became soulless. Opposite him, the other suddenly smirked. Dudung squatted near him and said, "Hey, Appa, if I save you and heal you touching my cheek, what will I get in return?" In the deep valley, Dudung's voice still echoed, "Would you dare to sacrifice your life for me or live the rest of your life as my slave?" Her face showed excitement. "Do you think you can do any of that?" However, Jigu only looked at her without a word. After a moment, his hand shakily reached his chest, trying to say one more thing. Jigu glanced at the girl beside him. "I can defeat Iron Seal," and said this. He clenched his fist, destroying the entire Iron Guild. Meanwhile, Dudung still stared wide-eyed at Jigu. "Aren't those two different things?" "You just said only one, then forget it." "Let's make a pact." At this moment, he continued. The sword was still at the middle-aged man with white beard's hand, which had lost all strength and was lying on the ground. Seeing this, Dudung was a bit curious. "Why do you keep setting conditions like that?" Behind Ban just appeared and praised him, saying he was indeed an interesting person. After hearing that, Dudung slowly stood up. "Is that so? No matter what, don't forget to monitor him closely." She turned her head to look behind and said, "He is strong too. But the demonic power hidden inside him is also strong. but the demonic power hidden inside will cause someone to reveal his true nature. Looking at the sword stuck in the ground, Sudong continued. Did you see when he killed that fool just now? That wasn't an act done in anger. She lowered her eyes slightly and commented, he aimed precisely at a vital spot. This seems to be the first time he's been so cold-blooded. Ban just gently adjusted his glasses and listened for a second, hesitating. Then he was very curious. What can we do with that guy? The wound seems serious, but after all, he is a high-level character. As soon as the words ended, Sudong coldly replied, just leave it be, it will heal itself. She used an indifferent tone, ignoring him. If it can heal itself, that means it still has value. Sudong gently closed her eyes and said, letting him live won't cost much. Her tone was extremely satisfied. Revenge is more interesting the longer it takes, along with the sharp gaze of the Demon King who was about to arrive. These words surprised Ban a little, is that so? Immediately, Sudong reminded him to be silent. Only the ignorant dare mention that name. Her long hair fluttered in the air as Sudong transformed into another person and said, I am the one who killed the Demon King. In the boxed space, someone's thought echoed. This is Jigu, moving closer to that object. Oh, I remember now. He looked over and over, examining inside his dream the nightmare that had followed him for 5 years. Jigu saw the bars in front of his eyes and raised his hand to try to touch them. After meeting Ju, it disappeared. Jigu's face suddenly darkened. He clenched his hand on the rope. This bucket, Jigu half closed his eyes, thinking for a long time. In his thoughts appeared a blurry scene looking out, and even after escaping through the wall, he was still stuck here. Jigu twitched the rope slightly. Now even the dream had become ridiculous. Thoughts kept arising in his mind, of course simply grabbing the rope to climb up. This is not my power. All of them originated from suddenly behind. A cold snort sounded loser. Just a broken connection. How long do you intend to complain? The other continued in a hellish tone. Borrowed power. How is that different from others? The sound kept rising in space. Whether through training or luck, the one who had it was the fool. While Jigu was a bit puzzled, another voice spoke up. He is right, master. Immediately, he quickly glanced behind the girl with dazzling light shining out, continuing, my power belongs to the master. Please don't despair. Jigu's eyes immediately widened in surprise, then he unconsciously sat up. Ban saw this and asked, oh, you're awake. As for Jigu, he was very curious. Who is this? He thought of another person, Sudong, right? However, when he saw the other smile, Jigu quickly realized he was someone related to the Demon King. Ban just calmly tilted his head to look at the other and pointed out the sword right next to him. Immediately, Jigu softly called Elru, and both of those quickly responded, Master, you finally woke up. After a while, Ban once again said, you should rest a bit. Although the wound has been first aided by me. You should avoid strong movements. He coldly continued, you could be in danger at any time. Suddenly, the surrounding scene began to shake. Jigu was very confused, glancing around. His eyes looked up to the sky where Sudong was hovering over Kaohsiung. The ground was shattered rocks lifted into the sky, sucked into a blue hole in the sky. Seeing this, Jigu was stunned. What is that? After hearing that, Ban calmly replied, Monster Commander, I'm sure this is the first time you've witnessed both. They exchanged words while looking at the scene in front of them, the Monster Commander Z. Ban looked at the giant body in front and continued, this is the master of this maze, Monster Commander Haron. Seeing that muscular body, Jigu spoke up. As the gatekeeper, Ban couldn't help but click his tongue. Well, not wrong. It was a bit confusing behind him, and he immediately pondered that he would have to fight this thing. Hertzone approached the place where Sudong was using a large flame surrounding it. Seeing this, Sudong's eyes became even more sinister. It seemed he had transmitted energy into Haron's eyes. At this moment, it looked even more spirited. The power surged elsewhere. Jigu could only widen his eyes and couldn't help but ask sharply, how the hell did the gate do that? Ban immediately replied, here. Just a little glance and it could kill you. He clenched his hand tightly beside me. Blood continuously poured out from inside and dripped down. A drop of blood soaked into the ground instantly. A sinister black-red circle appeared around Ban. A strong gust of wind appeared and blew fiercely. Seeing this, Jigu was very confused. This is a barrier. Just as he finished speaking, Ban remained calm. That's right, looks like you're not completely stupid. Behind the thick smoke and swirling wind was Haron's tall figure. Dark energy continuously rose as a legion from the underworld immediately advanced. The birds flapped their wings and flew into the sky. Sudong slightly furrowed her brows and smirked. Meanwhile, the monsters were still approaching her, and her whole body emitted a strong light. Immediately, all those monsters exploded into pieces. That was the exclusive skill with the beautiful name Inferno. At this moment, another wave of beasts charged to attack. A sudden flash of light bound the eyes, and at the same time, a giant sword instantly appeared. Sudong stood behind, slightly curling her lips in satisfaction. Jigu's eyes widened, mouth agape in astonishment. Around the sword suddenly appeared an evil purple aura. Roger's image suddenly appeared. Sometimes I wonder if they are the bodies of those fighting each other. Meanwhile, the sword was pointing straight down at Haron. Instantly, a quick explosion appeared, cracking the ground, in another scene at a long and wide mountain crevice. Then the scene shifted to the reward exchange room. Someone's hand lightly touched the lid of the box. It was opened. 2 swords beside it couldn't help but speak, finally obtained congratulations to the master. Jigu was very calm. I really did it. Although this was the result of hard work, I felt it wasn't very real. He rose to a not-so-happy state, feeling more disappointed than joyful. At the same time, Sudong also continued, I kept my promise. She glanced at the person next to her and said, Actually, you still have many enemies to avenge later, but I probably won't have to get involved, right? Jigu was a bit curious. Is your real name Sudong? Instantly, the other party didn't hesitate to honestly say, Yes, Sudong, a Korean person. Sudong looks good. My medicine is rare, too. How about you, Ban? After hearing that, he picked up the medicine bottle. It's medicine, too. Sudong held it in her hand, took it, seeing the other person give it to her. He was very surprised. Why do you still... Sudong calmly replied, Helping you defeat the Iron Guild isn't one of the conditions. Consider it part of the job. Sudong expressed her kindness. Your body isn't very healthy. Some parts haven't been treated yet. This will help. She frankly admitted, My first purpose isn't the medicine, but to become a commander. Also, I still have other bottles, so just take it as my investment in the contract. As she finished speaking, Jigu stared intently at the medicine bottle in his hand. I didn't expect she could give it away. The thing I've struggled so hard to get all this time. So easily. His hand clenched tightly, not letting go. I can't keep dependent on others forever. I need to grow up more. I don't know why, but I feel if I accept this, I'll be talked about endlessly. Suddenly, a voice unexpectedly rang out. Glad the master finally understands the matter? Hearing this, Jigu glanced sideways, but surely she wouldn't give me such a precious item without expecting something in return. Was she calculating to take something from me? He seriously asked Sudong, It's not about becoming a slave for life, right? After hesitating for a while, Sudong cupped her hands and replied, No, disciple. She narrowed her eyes with a calm tone. I want you to become my disciple. Then Sudong suddenly shouted, Don't yell at me right now, you're useless just because you're weak. But she reached out her hand and continued, When you pass level 50, come back to see me. Sudong pressed both hands on the other's cheeks. Then I will take care of you. After speaking, she removed her hands from Jigu's head. A sudden purple lightning appeared beside your ear. Seeing that, Sudong slowly explained that this is a sign of the covenant. She was sitting on a stone bench. At this moment, he no longer had any skills or abilities. But I don't want to go around saying this and that. My hand touched the cold stone beneath, trying to remember as much as possible. Then she seemed to recall something. That's right, thinking back. Sudong calmly added, I have already looked through it. The sword you carry is also quite unique. There is still some time before the door closes. I will show you a way to enhance the power of the sword. This made Jigu very curious. Then Sudong looked at him and continued, But first drink that entire bottle of medicine. This is also a rather risky method, so you must prepare well. This is the first lesson. The scene shifts to a forest that has been destroyed and desolate. Both sides are fiercely fighting each other. The voices of 2 people suddenly echoed in Jigu's ear. That person's master is very dangerous, don't trust her. The master lost control and lost your sword. Jigu was very trembling, wondering what to do now. In front of Jigu was Iron Seal, who was covering the eyes of a girl. Both sides said nothing to each other for a while. Then Iron Seal coldly spoke. This is the work of you damn people. I didn't expect she would dare to snatch the boss while we were distracted. Immediately, Sudong put both hands into the coat pockets and said, I was never one of you anyway. Whoever comes first eats first. She raised her fist high, cheering, Come on, disciple, hurry up and apply the method I told you. Could this person be a demon? Suddenly, someone called out, "Hey, Iron Seal!" Jigu raised his sword mouth agape, shouting, "I will kill you!" This action made Iron Seal a bit confused. He smiled a deadly smile, seeing that Jigu suddenly hesitated, wondering if he should attack. Meanwhile, a spark flashed. Iron Seal quickly ran to Ziggy's side, his face darkened. "You've changed, you've become that woman's man. It's always been like this, hasn't it?" The sword was swung in front of him. "All right, then. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, you will die under my sword." Iron Seal's face darkened as he swung his hand forward. "You've changed, you've become that demon's subordinate." He clicked his tongue sarcastically. "Well, it doesn't matter. No matter what, I will kill you here." Scene shifts. Jigu is drinking a bottle of medicine with purple liquid. He focused and drank it all. Suddenly, the system notification appeared. Rebuilding Gigu's entire body foundation, there is a transformation. His eyes widened, sweat continuously dripping. On the other side, Sudong and Bon silently observed. After a while, Jigu commented, "Not much has changed. My physical condition is just a little better." Immediately, Sudong sighed and laughed, of course. "What changed is your ability and latent strength." She went straight to the point. "The temporary changes in your body will be very small." Hearing this, Jigu couldn't help but furrow his brows. Such a small difference. It can determine whether a player lives or dies. The most notable temporary change is the pupil. Glancing sideways, observing the movement of hands and feet, they are also faster and more reflexive. Jigu tightly held the sword in his hand, looking at the gray smoke before him, saying simply that his perception ability has increased. Jigu opened his mouth, trying to catch his breath. I dodged it. Countless images appeared one after another in his mind movements that were new to him. Now he could see them bit by bit. Meanwhile, Sudong stood silently with arms crossed. "Congratulations, you have taken another step toward becoming a high-ranking master." In the quiet space, Jigu pondered just as the Demon King said. Another voice also echoed, "That doesn't mean you can fight the guild now." Ironheart understands 0-1 demon just starting to take steps. Cannot compare with experienced people. Sudong put on a thoughtful expression. "Even if you are lucky at most, you can only dodge one attack. You know, there's a saying, don't use a buffalo knife to kill a chicken." But Jigu seemed indifferent. It wasn't that he was careless. He thought for a while, but was relaxed because he knew he was very strong. Iron Seal then lowered his gaze and called out, "You." His face twitched slightly. "I understand now. And in just one move, he could grasp your development. The exchange with me and the elixir, he didn't miss any clues." After a while, he spoke. "So that's it." After understanding the situation, he would attack more seriously. The tip of the sword emitted a pale blue aura. Iron Seal darkened his face, swung his sword to activate the power of the holy sword Kallian, then quickly ran to Jigu. Iron Seal flew over and stabbed his sword into him without hesitation. "Just block him with your sword at the same time." Jigu struggled to use his sword to block the opponent's attack. His teeth clenched tightly. A dazzling yellow light appeared from his hand grip. Voices continuously echoed, interspersed with Iron Seal's voice. "The Lord of the Holy Sword, El, has awakened the ability to absorb the power of the Holy Sword Kallian, but because the owner's level is too low, he can only absorb part of the power." After a while, the two blades touched each other, absorption completed. Seeing this, Jigu slightly curled his lips into a faint smile, taking advantage of the moment when Iron Seal was probably confused, thinking his attack could not be blocked. And taking advantage of the exhaustion feeling when the power of the Holy Sword was stolen, it would make him hesitate. Without hesitation, he jumped up. Jigu looked at the person in front of him while planning to stretch the distance as much as possible. He slowly took out from his shirt, and finally, a memory fragment appeared. This was the item that helped him escape from the gate. Jigu held the tiny thread of arachnid web with both hands. Seeing this, Iron Seal couldn't help but furrow his brows tightly. Countless white rings poured out and approached him. However, Iron Seal was not afraid at all, frowning and thinking, "Do you think I will miss?" Meanwhile, Jigu remained very calm. He raised his middle finger to mock the opponent. Seeing this, Iron Seal's face darkened even more. He grabbed the saber and slashed to cut the threads. Two eyebrows furrowed tightly, teeth clenched. In the wild mountain forest space, Iron Seal's growl echoed everywhere. At this time, Sudong was standing behind him. She calmly spoke. "Then let's talk, shall we?" Around Sudong appeared countless purple spots of iron shields. She curled her lips into a sarcastic smile. As soon as she finished speaking, Iron Seal cursed irritably, "Damn it." In another development, it was already dark. The sky had a blood-red glow. The car was surrounded by several soldiers. The door slowly opened and Mr. Hun stepped out, breathing heavily. Suddenly, his face relaxed and became comfortable. In front of Mr. Hun were several soldiers guarding someone. Jigu smiled friendly. Darkness still covered the urban area outside. Scene change, a voice suddenly sounded. "I be Mr. Hun also helped take my mother home. Anyway, she can't drink the elixir at the hospital." He slowly walked toward the door and replied, "Z, let me know when you arrive in Korea. See you later to seek." The two men said one after another, "Thank you for helping." Mr. Hun replied, "No problem." "Then I'll go." "Yes, be careful." On the bed, a woman lay motionless. She slowly opened her eyes. Seeing the black shadow in front of her, Soo-jin wondered, "Jigu, is that you, my child?" Immediately, the other person hurriedly took her hand and replied, "Yes, mother, it's me. Are you well?" Hearing this, Soo-jin stammered, "My son, mother wants to see you." Tears streamed down her face onto the pillow one last time before dying. Mother really just wanted to see her son once before dying. "Thank you, my son." As soon as she finished speaking, he immediately reassured her, "Don't worry, everything will be fine." Then Soo-jin began to get straight to the point. "There is something I have always wanted to tell you, my son." Jigu's hand tightly held her hand, her weak voice echoed. Actually, Jigu had not finished speaking when Soo-jin had an incident. Seeing this, Jigu was extremely anxious, calling, "Mom, Mom, hold on a little longer." He spoke while opening the medicine bottle. "It's okay now." Jigu fed the medicine into his mother's mouth. Time passed, the space remained silent. Suddenly, Soo-jin's face emitted a purple light. Seeing this, Jigu was no longer worried. "It's all fine now." He fell asleep beside Soo-jin's bed. El and Ru took turns speaking. "Our master knows very well that he has been through too much in one day." El looked at someone's hand and continued, "Is this okay? I have a feeling that the more involved with her, the more danger we will face." Ru immediately replied, "Wow, we can't do anything anyway." He looked at the sleeping man. "For now, let's let him rest." The night was covered by a silent atmosphere under the bright yellow streetlights. In the distance, the sound of vibrations rang out intermittently, breaking the silence, persistent and continuous. In the middle of a crowded street, Sudong, with a cold face, held his phone close to his ear, his steps slow, gradually passing through the crowd just as the operator's voice came out. "The subscriber you have dialed is temporarily unavailable." Then she immediately hung up, grinding her teeth in anger. On the screen, the conversation showed no reply from her brother. Sudong clenched his phone tightly, so upset that he trembled. "After disappearing without a trace for a whole month, he only sent me one message. He didn't even bother to answer my calls." Thinking about this, Sudong's steps quickly became hurried. "Enough, I'm ready to get scolded when I get home." Just wait a few minutes later at the apartment complex, the night sky was as dark as ink, occasionally sparkling with a few small stars. The air was so quiet that you could hear the wind whistle softly. At that moment, the door was suddenly pushed open roughly. Sudong angrily shouted, "Oppa, are you kidding me? You told me to go home but didn't even answer my calls. Why I even had to skip my extra classes." Her eyes rolled back as if frustrated to the point of helplessness. "Do you know how worried Mom was?" At that moment, a gentle voice suddenly echoed from inside. "Is that you, dear?" Sudong didn't answer immediately but hurried straight inside. The woman opposite her lovingly asked, "Appa, is the baby sleeping in the room? He must be very hungry, right? How was school today?" Upon seeing her, Sudong's eyes instantly reddened, her gaze wet and trembling. "Mom!" Then her face flushed with embarrassment. "Who is Mom?" A moment later, the sound of a boiling soup pot was clearly heard. White smoke rose, carrying the sweet aroma of spicy seasoning that spread throughout the small house. Jigu, lying in the bedroom, was awakened by the sound. Chirping sounds made him wake up. "So, Appa, then what happened?" He drowsily sat up as the yellow light shone inside, creating a cozy scene. Outside, the voice continued. "Then what? No way, really," he mumbled. He smelled the familiar scent of his mother's soybean soup. That familiar aroma made Jigu's lips move slightly like a reflex. Then his whole body trembled uncontrollably. Jigu pressed his lips tightly, trying not to let tears fall. In his mind appeared a thought behind that door was the scene he had dreamed of for so long, the scene he was willing to trade his life for. Jigu ran his hand through his thick hair, then told himself he couldn't let Mom see this face. He had to smile and greet Mom. Thinking of this, he decisively stood up, tightly gripping the door handle. Ggu happily rushed out, shouting loudly, Mom, did you sleep well, Mom? Who the fuck are you? At that moment, Sujin had completely transformed. Her face was youthful and full of vitality. You're up already? Sujin slowly placed the soup pot on the table, then urged, dinner's ready, come sit here. Seeing his brother's expression, Dudong laughed. He was even more surprised than me. More stars gradually appeared in the sky after dinner, while the bowls and chopsticks were still scattered by the sink. Then Dudu hesitantly spoke up. Meanwhile, the TV was still broadcasting news reports. She continued. She entered the gate mentioned in the news, defeating all those elite people. Dudong propped his chin, curiously questioning. Did you get the elixir and give it to Mom to recover? Jigu shyly said, not expecting this to happen. The three of them sat together at the familiar small table. Everything remained unchanged except for Sujin's new appearance. Dudong held his head in frustration, not knowing whether to be surprised, happy, or scared. He had just cried a lot earlier. Then she quietly pleaded, I want the elixir too. He immediately refused, that's too much. At that moment, Sujin suddenly patted her son's shoulder and called Jigu. She smiled affectionately at him. You've worked hard for Mom, haven't you? I'm sorry, son. Jigu laughed lightly, as if everything had never been a burden. It's nothing, Mom. It's not that hard. Then the night suddenly became livelier with continuous laughter coming from the small house. Jigu happily teased Mom's son is so good. Don't you know, Sujin pretended to be surprised. Oh, really? In the blink of an eye, it was early morning. White clouds gently floated in front of the building. Sujin's cheerful voice kept ringing out. It's been a while since you came to visit. Stay and have dinner with us. Tasik shyly blushed on both cheeks and politely declined, no thank you. I need to talk privately with Jigu, but thank you for inviting me. Sujin reached out to take the gift box, repeatedly thanking him, remember to come by soon. I need to talk privately with Jigu, but thank you for inviting me. Sujin reached out to take the gift box, repeatedly thanking and recalling to visit soon. I'm very grateful to you for taking care of my son. Tae-sik laughed out loud. It's nothing. See you next time, ma'am. His unusual expression at that moment made Jigu unable to look away, his gaze fixed on every small movement as if he had figured something out. A while later at a barbecue restaurant, the aroma from the charred meat continuously spread inside. Amid the noisy chatter of everyone, Tae-sik tilted his head and loudly ordered, 4 servings of pork belly and a bottle of soju, please. The staff immediately shouted, coming right up. While waiting for the food, he calmly poured water into a glass. Jigu wondered, it's still daytime and you're already drinking. Teshi casually replied, why not drink now? We have more than enough reason to celebrate. His eyes brightened as he changed the subject. Tell me, how did you get the elixir? Tasik sipped water while explaining, I had to hold back a lot not to ask you over the phone. However, faced with his question, Jigu slowly began speaking, and his next words immediately made Tae-sik spit out all the water. Are you interested in my mother? The people in the restaurant heard the noise and turned their heads to eavesdrop. At that moment, he trembled, uncontrollably speechless. What did you say? Jigu kindly reminded him, and his face turned bright red. He reached for a tissue and pointed to his feet. I've been suspicious for a while now. Jigu calmly wiped his wet face. I know you often take care of my mother when I'm not around, and I know it's definitely not because she's getting younger. Although today you're more obvious than usual, I still support you too. Feel free to speak up. If my mother ends up with someone like you, my father wouldn't mind either. At that moment, the restaurant owner brought the dishes over. Tae-sik hastily cleared his throat. Ahem. Thin smoke began to rise from the kitchen, and he quickly changed the subject. Anyway, back to what we were talking about, the elixir. Jigu reached for some meat from the grill as they continued discussing it. Did you bring a soundproof barrier generator? Tae-sik asked curiously. I have it in the car, but why? He sighed, complaining about a long and complicated story. The sound of meat sizzling lightly on the grill with fat dripping onto the red coals crackled, mixing with the rising white smoke and the story being told at the table. After understanding the whole situation, Tae-sik immediately became furious. What, those damn dogs dared to do that? He lost his temper, stood up and shouted, Give me the address so I can feed them some naked chicken. Jigu nervously raised his hand to stop him. Calm down, you're holding a bottle of soju. Oh, what are you going to do? Then he rested his chin on his hand and sighed deeply. Thanks for standing up for me, but there's no need to get so angry. I'll defeat them myself. Clenching his fists in anger, he cursed the damn Iron Gill gang. Tae-sik seriously reminded his juniors, revenge must come from the heart. He hurriedly grabbed a piece of meat from the grill and then stood up again. Only with a sincere heart can one uphold the way. Eat your meat. Jigu shyly waved his hand. What are you talking about? Suddenly he remembered something else. Speaking of revenge, he still had another debt to repay. Jigu loudly asked, "How's the guardian beast on the 4th floor?" Tesik slowly recounted that a C-rank tamer team had just been sent out yesterday. His face gradually flushed pink from the alcohol. There are 37 people in total, 70% of whom are C-rank players. That manpower is enough to take down a guardian beast on the 30th floor. So they should be about to report success. He sighed sadly. What a pity. I was planning to relieve some stress and get some exercise. Scene shifts to a dark forest where hurried footsteps and heavy breathing continuously echoed in the silent space. The man kept gasping, "I have to report to the association." He tightly held his arm, half lost, saying the entire C-rank tamer team was suddenly ambushed by a giant monster approaching. The man's eyes lit up like a predator's. However, he was still unaware and muttered, "They've all been wiped out." Suddenly, a piercing scream of pain and agony echoed, shaking the once quiet forest. Meanwhile, outside Jigu's house, inside a black car, a conversation was heard. "Our priority now is to check the condition of you and your mother after drinking. This elixir isn't something that can be handled at a regular hospital," Mr. Hun said as he operated a tablet, reassuring, "But don't worry too much. TXO will take care of this for you." He also announced that he had given half of the reward from the Kim Stone and the elixir to the head of the department as requested. Mr. Hun smiled as he tilted his head. He almost fainted upon hearing the news, but told the man it was his wish, so he would no longer owe him anything, and he accepted it reluctantly. At that moment, Xiong-hoon reached out to smooth the report to take a look. After paying taxes and some miscellaneous fees, there was still about 20,000,000 left. He then mentioned another matter regarding his desire to move with his family to a new house. "I have researched a few places north of the Han River, pulling out a tablet displaying the map as per your family's request. I have narrowed down the options, so you just need to make a decision. Do you have any questions?" Jigu looked away for a long moment, his lips moving silently without speaking. At this point, he shook his head no. "I understand. But why are you still choosing the house we will move to now?" Seo Hun was surprised and asked, "Is that all?" He tapped something on his phone screen, then explained, "Following the instructions of Team Leader T, starting today, I will be Seo Hun's personal assistant," showing his phone number. His voice was very cooperative, looking forward to working with you. Jigu awkwardly waved his hand inwardly, wondering if he was always like this. Scene shifts to a busy alley demon. The sky had gradually turned ink purple. At this moment, both of them pulled their suitcases outside. Mr. Hun hesitated before speaking. "I have prepared according to your instructions, but what do you intend to do with this?" Saying this, he glanced at the pile of suitcases with $8,000,000 in cash. Jigu bowed his head and explained some equipment I bought was destroyed, so I will repay the debt and buy some new gear. Seo Hun was horrified and asked exactly how much was hit. The next words from him were like a thunderclap. $3.5 million, he gaped in shock. A voice in Jigu's head sighed, recalling that old man was crazy enough to not hesitate to owe $3.5 million. But I must be crazy too to accept without thinking. Ji-chun calmly announced that item cost $3.5 million, sir. He looked again, not knowing what he was thinking, even though he managed in the end. Scene shifts to Ji-chun's house. The back door was slightly ajar, smoke from the furnace spreading thickly. Glowing red coals crackled and flickered with red light. At that moment, a fierce spark shot from the iron bar, sending out sparks. Ji-chun continuously swung the hammer with decisive blows, the sound of metal clashing, ringing sharply through the smoky air. Min-soo, circling around the forge from outside, suddenly ran in. "Sir, we have guests." The weapons neatly hung on the wall. Ji-chun gently replied, "Guests, huh?" Xiong-hun turned toward the stairs and instructed, "I will wait upstairs." Ji-Gyu nodded and thanked him. At that moment, Ji-chun called out from afar, "It's you, sir." He slowly stepped forward. "Just a few months and you don't recognize me anymore." Jigu smiled as well. "Hello, sir," he said, calmly approaching to ask how he was doing. Ji-chun nodded and replied, "Of course, I also received the money you sent through the association." He teasingly raised his hand, though a bit lacking. Ji-gil shyly scratched his head. "I'm sorry." Ji-chun smiled. "I was just joking. Anyone who looks at the accompanying letter knows basically it's a will." He raised his head and continued honestly. "I didn't think you would still be alive to come back. I was going to treat it as condolence money for you and erase the debt." Ji-Gyu laughed and said, "I came to pay the rest." "Is that so?" Ji-chun calmly said, "If you insist, I will gladly accept it." At that moment, his gaze suddenly grew serious, fixating on the thin coat GGYU wore. Ji-chun vaguely asked, "Gran Hurt is dead. You calmly admitted Z saved my life." Then the other's words made Ji-chun ponder for a long time. A few minutes later, he raised his eyes and said, "Wow, that's what it had to do, so I have no reason to be sad. But the life of an armor is still quite sad." Night gradually fell over the small alley, gentle moonlight illuminating the whole sky. Ji-chun's calm voice echoed, "Will you tell me about its last moments?" That morning at Jigu's house, the sky was clear blue, a gentle breeze passing through, bringing fresh breath. Sudong called from inside Mom. "Appa, where are you two going?" Jigu exclaimed in surprise. "You're awake already." He slowly explained, "I told you yesterday. Today, Mom and brother will go for a checkup." Sudong was still dazed and sleepy. He said, "Then what?" Just as she blinked, her gaze suddenly hardened. Sudong looked at his brother in panic and shouted, "Brother, are you taller?" Jigu was confused. What scene shifts? The sky begins to show warm rays of sunshine. At the changing room in the car company, Mr. Hun kept exclaiming, "Wow, Kim Jigu. I thought you were a model or something. Why don't you become a celebrity?" At this moment, Jigu was slowly taking off his wide-shouldered shirt, his bulging muscles giving a solid feeling. He shyly protested, "No, no." Seo Hun continued to ask how he grew 3 centimeters overnight. "He also gained a bunch of muscles. It must be a divine elixir, really good stuff." He whispered, "Please give me a bottle." Jigu silently recalled Sudong's words, "I want a bottle too." He smiled wryly. "My sister said the same thing." After finishing speaking, Jigu's eyes quickly became deep and serious. He told himself that although it might not seem like a big deal, this was a major change even if he exercised like crazy. But now even his muscles have reached their limit. The system notification appeared, "Your limit has been readjusted." Jigu wondered if this was the meaning of the phrase limit readjustment, teasing Rue. After all, the owner was still a weakling. He hurriedly interrupted, "Be quiet." Xiong-hoon announced that he had the test results. Starting with the endurance test results, if this was from 25 years ago, he turned his head and smiled teasingly. Then he would have broken the world record in every Olympic category. Jigu wondered why he'd said 25 years ago. He slowly put on his outer shirt and asked, "What about the current standards? He never watches the Olympics anyway." Xiong-hoon nodded, "That's right, wow." Then he continued smiling, "I'm about level 10. Jigu twitched his lip. "Are you trying to pick a fight?" Then Xiong-hoon's eyes suddenly lit up strangely. He leaned forward and pointed like someone playing rock, paper, scissors. "Jigu, don't be surprised." Jigu put on a confused face. "What do you mean?" Xiong-hoon whispered. "Your magic power and mana control." Speaking of which, he immediately shouted, "SS-Rank, you have the potential of a high-ranking player." However, faced with this exclamation, Jigu was completely speechless. "Okay." Seo Hun exclaimed in surprise, "You're way too calm." Jigu was confused. "But I told you not to be surprised." Seo Hun got angry, waving his arms. "Show some surprise." "I said high-ranking player." Jigu turned his face and muttered to himself, "Anyway, it's old news." Then suddenly from afar came the sound of a door opening. Taesik slowly stepped in and asked, "Are you done?" Jigu nodded and replied, "So what about my mother?" He loudly announced, "Not only is she completely healthy, but she's healthier than an average person." Then Taesik suddenly raised his phone, but the truly amazing thing was, even as a normal citizen now, she can use items. Jigu was amazed and shouted, "Items!" Sweat poured down his forehead, but he still hesitated. "Amazing," Taesik admitted with interest. "Right." Finally, he changed the subject. "Well, I'll give you details later. I came to see you about something else." Taesik asked seriously, "You haven't been hunting these past few days, right?" Jigu was confused. "Hunting, no, I'm just taking a break for now." His ring-wearing hand pressed tightly against the wall. "I'm still absorbing the power of Kalian," so Ao sadly said, "I'm sorry, Master." Jigu immediately shook his head. "No, it's okay." Ao tilted his head and continued, "When do you plan to start again?" He raised his eyes and muttered, "Maybe in a week." Hearing this, Taesik propped his chin up. His eyes full of complexity, he finally agreed, "Then let's save it for next week." Jigu was confused. "Why? Is something wrong?" Taesik explained, "We lost contact with the Rank C Conquest team." He slowly added, "We are forming a Rank B team to send out next week." Jigu hesitated. "So you mean—" He was immediately interrupted. "Exactly. The 4th floor guards haven't been caught yet." This statement made Jigu gape in surprise. Taesik suddenly stopped. But that's not the important thing. His face gradually darkened. It seemed that Bastard could hunt players to grow stronger. Jigu was so tense he was sweating profusely. In contrast to that atmosphere, Seong-hoon sat behind, telling himself he also wanted to join the conversation. The Rank B taming teams have at least 30 members. Over 60% are Rank B. This thought flashed through Jigu's mind. But I'm player Kim Jigu. My rank after drinking the divine elixir is here. The atmosphere immediately deflated, of course, without rank. A moment later, at the general manager's office, Tae-sik seriously reminded him to complete the official rank appraisal. Now you don't have to worry about not being able to use equipment anymore. He gently encouraged him. Although your physical attributes might only be rank D, considering your potential, you will easily reach rank B. Jigu sighed wearily, slumping over the table, then pointed up to explain, but rank B means you have to be above level 100 according to the player and society's high school textbook. The problem is I'm still at the level criterion for ranking. Does Chung Chung's rank make sense? So isn't it too vague if we consider potential as well? Tae-sik opened his mouth to reply. Maybe we call it potential, but mana quantity and how it's applied directly relate to combat skills. At this point, he gave an example. Look at those mutants. Their levels aren't important, right? Tae-sik continued his opinion. Chung thinks level actually isn't important. What's important is the stats increasing each time you level up, and nowadays we don't even know other people's levels due to security issues. Giguk raised the question. If you undergo the appraisal, won't you attract attention? Tae-sik nodded a bit like a bloodthirsty guide. You can't suddenly become rank B without leveling up, so of course you'll stand out. Giguk, frustrated, reminded him not to call that nickname. And you even made up more. At this moment, Tae-sik bowed deeply, saying you'll inevitably cause some controversy. I can't stop the media from calling you a promising player who might become a high-ranking legend. Don't you like that? Jigu quickly explained, it's not that I hate becoming famous, but Iron Jew is definitely still watching me, so I don't want to attract attention. This made Tae-sik pause for a while. I think you're being overly cautious. But I respect your decision, he continued. However, I can't rank you myself. I don't have that authority. Jigu, surprised, looked up and replied, seeing him calmly say, arrange your free time, I thought he had a way already. Tae-sik didn't object. I didn't expect you to refuse like this. I thought you would definitely take the appraisal test. In a world where just having a high rank means being treated completely differently, who would have thought you'd refuse? At this moment, Jigu sighed tiredly, complaining about a headache. But just then, Tae-sik suddenly brought out a report, so it's not that there isn't a way. Jigu looked at the sheet and vaguely asked, what is this? He replied indifferently, a list of guilds participating in this expedition. Tae-sik suggested that if you temporarily join a guild, you could participate in the expedition. At least I can act as a mediator to introduce you to the guilds. Jigu felt no hope at all. Who would accept a complete stranger? His eyes glued to the list, and if I leave the guild right after the expedition ends, that would increase the number of people leaving the guild, and as a result, I would damage their reputation. Then, in a moment of distraction, Jigu suddenly widened his eyes in astonishment. The fifth line seemed to glow Morning Star team with Kim Seong-pil as captain.